Hello, and welcome to episode 507 of the Awesome Comics Podcast, a place where small press makes one hell of a big noise. My name is Vince Hunt, and joining me as always is the artist and creator of the epic comic series Vanguard, Dan Butcher.
Hello.
We're going to probably hear a little bit about that later. I'm going to probe him with some questions about that. Speaking of probing, Tony Esmond's here as well.
I'll have a probing. Hello.
And we probe into important aspects of comics and just different topics and conversations. And
We've got our moaning out of the way. We're fine for today.
Yeah. We had our pre-show moan. Putting the world to rights, as I think anyone who listens to a comics podcast or is involved in comics in any way, shape, or form, no matter how professional you are, whether it's a hobby, whether it's just a passion, whether you're making them yourselves or you're just reading them, at some point you love having a moan with someone else, do you? Do you know what I mean? You just love going, have you seen this? Or have you heard about this?
Yeah.
You know, just we just don't go online and just spout out nonsense.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
Yeah.
You know,
there's that kind of stages of grief, like acceptance, anger, all that stuff.
Yeah.
I feel like we're well down the bottom of that, or well up it. Like we get to the end of it, and sort of just kind of like, this accepting this now.
Yeah.
This is what it is.
Yeah, we sort of accepted this in the state that it is. I was thinking a bit about conventions. I've sort of accepted that there's going to be no comics at some of them.
I was this weekend. I did the supermarket shop. Getting the food, groceries, and all of that. Parked in the car park, and there was this honking great American style van next to me. Looked pretty cool. It's like the 18 van a little bit. Had some stickers on it, and I looked to my right. And one sticker completely summed up the way things are, and it just says, "It is what it is." And I was like, "Yeah, you're right, van. You're absolutely right."
Yeah. It sounds a bit like a rape murder van to me.
No. I don't think so. It had tinted windows.
It's usually go through the most horrible shit imaginable, and then you say, "It is what it is."
It is what it is, isn't it?
Yeah, just when they're about to murder you in the back of that van. Yeah,
It is what it is.
Yeah.
I'd love. It would be refreshing though. The thing is, we talk like that, but how refreshing would it be to have like a line of dialogue like that within like a superhero comic or something, like just one moment where after all this carnage, someone just goes, "It is what it is."
It is what it is.
Because
we do kind of accept that happens in superhero comics, and it's massively natural to us, isn't it?
Yeah.
These people flying around doing shit like that. Yeah.
It's always good that Astro City take when they had like the people cleaning up, because would you move to a city where like it was having superhuman warfare in the streets? So I wouldn't go there.
Well, Marvel's a bit like that as well, isn't it? When they're looking over the top of themselves and Giant Man's walking over them and stuff.
Yeah. Do you think something like that? Because I think that's fascinating when they talk about like the cleanup or like the after effects of superheroes and these comic universes that we love. Do you think something like that can sustain a miniseries or an ongoing series, or do you just think there's nothing?
What was the Marvel miniseries? Forgetting what it's called now. They did a miniseries. Is it Damage Control?
Damage Control.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that was a good little series. I think it's quite well thought of. I think they tried to bring it back, didn't they, a while ago?
Because there's an element of like, the normal person in an abnormal world to that sort of thing, isn't it? Like, for instance, a Gotham Central is another example of like, because they were cops, weren't they? I mean, I didn't read that one, so it was like
that's amazing.
Police procedural in an unusual place, isn't it? That's what that is.
I think you have to have a bit. I mean, essentially, Spider-Man kind of started out like that, didn't it? There's a lot of that sort of. Yeah, I think it can work depending on the environment. I think it works quite well.
If you had that kind of story, but like it actually was in continuity, and in one issue, Iron Man was blasting it up with Titanium Man in Manhattan, and then the next issue of the Damage Control, they were in Manhattan dealing with the after effects of that, and it was all tying up stuff that was happening in other comics. That'd be great, but I can imagine I don't know if they've got the kind of the wherewithal.
I think the question is, can it sustain a series? My answer to that was, what can these days?
Yeah.
They just cancelled a load of the X-Men, haven't they?
But with that sort of
the
concept,
X-Men books are only getting to 10.
It's But with that sort of concept, though, if you've got these superhero universes, and there's this thing that kind of I like it, but then it goes beyond a certain line. Because what appeals to me about ideas and series like that is that these are normal people that are never going to meet the heroes, never going to do, they're just doing a job, and they're just cleaning up all this stuff, or whatever they're doing. But they will never meet these people that they're cleaning up after. But in a comic book, they feel that they have to get these people in, don't they? There has to be scenes where Tony Stark meets them, and for me that doesn't really ring true. And it also sometimes feels like the hero is slightly patronising to the person doing the work.
Sometimes the boy, is it The Boy Loves Superman? Is that the one? Or Boy Loves Spider-Man, whatever that one was. That was quite good, I thought. Yeah, it very much depends what it is. I'll tell you, just as you were saying there, I think the one that works well for me, and it's slightly different, is BPRD. So what they're always doing is they're always dropping in like a scientist who's an expert in Egyptology or something, and like a man who's a fish man, and Hellboy come to meet him to say, oh, by the way, and he's like, what's going on?
What the hell is this?
Just surrounded by, but what's this all about? I kind of like that. I think you've got to drop some kind of everyman thing into it. No, don't have to, but I think sometimes it works nicely to drop that everyman into a story.
Yeah. It's to sort of just bring that kind of the equilibrium of like, these are all fantastic characters and fantastic stuff happening. Let's get like the Joe Blogs in there to sort of just give you a kind of, wow, this is really out of the ordinary.
Even in is it Superman the movie where the dude, is he a black dude who goes, what are you doing? When that geezer Superman flies off and he's like, hell, like this.
And he goes, let's see, Jim, that's a bad outfit. And then
that's it.
He's like, excuse me. And then he just like blasts off. And you're like...
That's just perfect. That's all you need sometimes, I think. Just that little bit of real life, don't you?
But when they have the sustained interactions, that's when it falls apart to me. And it feels like a lot of, I know, there's been many examples of it. The one I can think of is an animated show. You remember that Lower Decks, that Star Trek one, that animated one, which they're big fans of. It's not really for me, but I can see it's just
same concept as what you're describing.
But it is like
not the main cast.
Yeah, it's the red shirts, right? Essentially. And I went into it thinking, brilliant. We're just going to have these people. You get the echoes of the bigger stuff going on, but we follow the comedy of the lower people. And it didn't take long before the lower people are on the same level as the main ones.
That's what happened. Like, with that damage control, you get an issue where they have to work together to fight a superhero villain or something, and you're like, you jump in the shark.
Even with something like New Mutants, who are just these kids at school meant to be learning. They're the kids at school learning, and next thing you know, they're in fucking Asgard. It's like,
the concept kind of
isn't prolongable.
Yeah. Because that's the danger of it, isn't it? When you live in a hyper realistic, abnormal, superpowered world. If you have one interaction with one of these people, one of these beings, it forever changes your life. Do you know what I mean? It's like that, if you met like the author you've always loved, or like just a Hollywood star or something, you'd be like, oh my god, and it changes how you live. Probably, not necessarily your life. It could be the next 3-6 months or something like that, but it has an effect on you.
It had an effect, yeah.
Whereas I prefer it if like there's just there's no effect. So what is going on with these people? Do you know what I mean? They're interesting because I think characters should be interesting without needing something else like that.
You think there's a space somewhere in comics for that? I mean, the most popular television is soap opera, isn't it?
Yeah.
And yet that has never translated. Has it translated into comics? I don't know. Or maybe Love and Rockets, maybe.
Yeah,
we can do the old
Strangers in Paradise and things like that.
Yeah, but even that one of them's a spy.
Yeah, but that's a different kind of.
The romance comics used to be fucking nuts back in the day.
Yeah,
they used to look, but like those days are long gone.
Yeah,
I don't know. For
maybe
me, it's
maybe manga.
More...
I can only guess there's a manga that's like a soap opera kind of thing.
There's definitely going to be a romance manga.
Yeah. I mean, there's a manga series for everything, isn't there? There's hugely popular series about people playing tennis, and the soap opera and the day-to-day lives and all this sort of stuff. Or fencing.
I don't mind all
I remember
that.
seeing fencing, and I was like, wow. And that was, I remember this was a few years ago now, but when you see your first one, like, there's a comic about fencing.
Yeah, I remember seeing a fishing one and thinking the same. There's a comic about some dude who goes fishing.
Yeah. But I think now I'm at that point, hopefully, as a reader, and like, obviously with the show and being a bit more open-minded about things, instead of going, why would you make a comic about fishing or fencing? I'm thinking, well, what on earth what sustains several
it's all in the
books
execution, man. And that's always the answer to what we say sometimes, is it's always in the execution. Sure, there could be an EastEnders comic. It probably wouldn't attract us, but if it was really well done, we'd probably quite like it,
Yeah.
Frank Cho drew it, I'd buy it. Yeah, it's like
What EastEnders by Frank Cho. Amazing.
Frank Cho doing Cat Slater. I'd live for that.
You know when you have a concept for an idea for a comic or a story, and someone says, "Oh, tell us it," and you tell them like the shortened version. You're kind of doing yourself a disservice in as much that it's you telling the story and doing the comic, which brings it out and makes it what it is, not the kind of the back of the box synopsis. So I don't know about you guys. I always try and refrain from telling people stuff like that because you sort of say, "Oh, my idea is about Joe Bloggs," and he sort of lives on a housing estate, and he goes down the shops, and it's like, "Oh,
it's the synopsis problem as well." Do you know what I mean? That it's a perfect example of that, isn't it? You know, some of the greatest joy I've had in comics is going into something completely unknown,
blind. Just don't know what it is.
You know, and when we've received comics via email and stuff, and thank you to everyone who sends us comics, by the way. Sometimes I'll read who the contributors are, and read a bit of the email. But if it says too much about the story, I don't read that. I just jump straight in.
Yeah. It's like the banana story we did. You know, people would just think it's about a man sticking a banana up his arse.
Yeah.
But they're missing the sort of the
like
sense
banana,
of
there's layers to it, isn't there? There's
literally
political allegory that was.
Yeah, you
got skins on it as well.
It's all about the foreskins, isn't it? It's like as you peel away.
Peeling it back.
Welcome to the show, everyone.
Good for you, aren't they? Good for your blood pressure, potassium.
Yeah.
Do we all like bananas on this show?
Love bananas.
No, just bananas.
Mad on them.
Bananas on toast. I like that sometimes.
Oh.
Ever tried that?
No.
Bananas in pajamas.
So it's just a Free Amigo show today, isn't it?
Just a Free Amigo show. And as you can tell, we are ready to talk comics. And we're just shooting the shit. We got some hot beverages or fizzy beverages or whatever beverage we've got. We'll probably drink too much of it and need a wee halfway through. But we're just going to power through it, and because we've got a couple of topics. And Dan, as you pointed out, comics are ever changing. They are ever moving onwards, forwards. We don't know what's going to happen with them, but we can certainly talk about what we think about certain things, or like how we think things are going to change, or how little we actually know, which is usually the case.
Oh man, I know fuck all.
Yeah.
Really. That's a wise man believes he knows a little.
Yeah. And we are three wise men. If we were the three wise men, which one of us is taking a box of gold, the chocolates? Which one's taking frankincense? And who's got myrrh?
What is myrrh?
I think it's an expensive perfume.
Oh, okay.
That's Dan, isn't it? Dan's taking the...
We've already talked about
He's
this.
Taking a bottle of jupe there.
Record.
He's taking a bottle of jupe or cool water.
I did get the old Three
He's got a
Kings
wolf
roll
in the
school,
desert.
I've got to say. So, standard.
Nice. So
I've never worn aftershave. Never in my life have I worn aftershave.
You've never worn aftershave? No. So that's your natural smell?
Yeah, musky.
Wow. Thick.
Burnt rubber.
You know when the guy you go in the bathroom in the club toilet and he'd say like have a squeeze? I'd only put it on them because he could touch your face, and I thought this is worth the quid.
Would you pull a ball out? There you go.
So mate, I've only got the one bottle. Can't cover all of that.
Do them both, son. That'll sting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Just shaved that.
Oh,
sore.
I've got a mate, and when we were working together, before we got in any, if we go to a shop, we had a competition who's the first person to say he shaves his balls. Like literally, you could go to the so I pint like he shaves his balls. I pint lager, please. It's like that. It's like
excellent.
Highbrow conversation we've got this week, but we're here to have fun, and you're here to listen. If you're still listening, God bless you. But yeah, there's a couple of topics. We're just going to keep rolling this week. We've got quite a few recommendations for later in the show that we're looking forward to getting into. So there's shout outs and everything else. But it's all about the reach around this week, isn't it, Dan?
Yeah, hell yeah.
And hang on, I'm reading the wrong email. It's all about how do we reach our audiences in comics.
It's Dan's question.
Yeah.
Dan's question of the week.
So you take it away, Dan. You lead us in.
Generally, like, we all know that kind of social media seems to be kind of losing its footing, and as a way to kind of connect with potential readers, other creators. so with that avenue gone, which used to be sort of a relatively tried and tested method, how do you go about getting your comic into the hands of people that want to read it? It's a tough one. I grapple with it myself. I couldn't tell you. I'm posting my new Vanguard links on the socials, but they seem to be getting very little to no interaction.
It seems like we're mostly relying on captured audiences already. Not captured, but people who, you know. I sort of thought about this because obviously me and Falpian, everyone has just launched a Kickstarter, so it's very much on our mind. Yeah. And it's like, there's people who will buy all our new books, some people who pick and choose, some people have bought just the odd one. Then you've got the obvious family, friends, colleagues.
Yeah.
And then but the gold is the new people.
Yeah. And
that's the gold.
Yeah. I mean, as lovely as it is, and you never say no, and you always want it. The families, the friends, the colleagues, the people you already know.
Yeah, I don't really tell my family.
But if you do have that, you know, if it's anything like that, you appreciate the support, and every sale's a sale. But in some ways, in your mind, you kind of do you subtract those because they're like. They don't really count because
I know that's
they're
a phrase,
sales, but are they real sales?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's how I feel. I was about to say, man. I know that's a phrase we hear it often, that we're seller, but is it though?
Yeah.
I want to sell a book based on its quality, so it's almost like it feels like a 0.25 of a sale for me. Do you know what I mean? Almost like it's not.
Maybe it's an attitude of the approaching it as opposed to kind of like a businessman, like a unit's a unit, as opposed to kind of a creator or an artist who wants to feel like the person reading it is going to get the message you're trying to, and story you're trying to convey. And when you feel like it's a bit of a pity thing when someone gives you, maybe that's a harsh way of framing it, but like if your friends and family are doing it and they're like, they might not even fucking read it.
I don't tell people outside of comics. I don't tell my family, and I don't tell my colleagues. Because
I'd drop it in my socials, but I won't. I
don't really.
You don't really do socials.
But I mean, colleagues is a weird one, especially because of the comics we do. I do.
I can understand that.
I
can understand that.
So let's break it down to some different parts then, and like straight up, obviously as soon as you say social media, everyone will just jump on board and go, oh, social media is such a septic tank, this, that, and the other, blah 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 blah, and we are painfully aware, and we have ranted about it and talked about it before of what it is or can be now, but there was a time it wasn't always like that, and there was thriving communities. This show exists because of fucking social media.
Massively. I'm writing that about that in a piece at the moment.
You know,
the days of like being excited because Brian Bendis liked a message of yours or something. You know.
And if there is like certain communities within these social media circles, whatever ones you're using, if there's a positive community or area of the social media you're using, fucking embrace that and enjoy that. And if you're enjoying that, then it's brilliant. You know, because half the time we hear all of the bad news and we don't hear any of the good. So if there's like, whether it be, you know, Twitter, Instagram, X, Blue Sky, but whatever, you know, whatever the flavour of music is, if it's doing you well, then that's sort of all that matters.
That's fine.
You know, because sometimes, you know, we can be like, oh, you know, I popped on there and all I'm seeing is shit, which is probably the case for a lot of people. It's certainly, you know, I'm not getting as involved, you know, because I was just getting tired of it and demoralised in a lot of ways. But for other people, it's still a source. Of some
I think you've got to jump around, man. I think the way I've seen it is we've sort of invested a little bit from Tribute in Substack. So we've posted a couple of audio content. I post weekly on there. We've got a couple of paid subscribers on there. And what happens is, so for example, I put a podcast on the Never Iron Anything say we do a tribute special podcast. So I put it on the Never Iron Anything normal Podbean feed. I'm getting as many listens on Substack as I am. In fact, more. I'm getting more listens on Substack than I am on the established, has been there for 5 years Podbean page. And the good thing about if you have a Substack, you can read the sources for it, and I can tell the sources are all coming internally from Substack.
Right.
So they're coming from emails that get sent to subscribers and people who are reading the posts on Substack. And I think that's great, and we've jumped on that because it's a good source of getting the news out there. But that will go in decline at some point. Yeah, same as everything else. Seemingly everything else goes in decline.
It's that thing you just got to wait for the next fucking ship to jump to when like it comes along. It's frustrating because then you're constantly like if as a fan you want to kind of follow a creator in their works, and they have to keep on doing this fucking rigmarole of jumping around platforms just to stay relevant and reach your audiences.
I mean, having like 10 accounts for something, for one thing is exhausting, isn't it? Do you know what I mean?
I've hit my threshold of it.
Yeah.
I've
I don't understand. Here I am, the old man. But back in the day when it was all fresh and new, people would have like apps and stuff that would post in on 5 things at once, wouldn't they? If they had like 5 different accounts, or they would
TweetDeck and
there was all of that, and that doesn't necessarily work now, does it? These things don't necessarily.
No, I don't think it does.
So it makes it more labor intensive that you got to copy paste into another thing and then copy paste into another thing. At least that's what it seems like to me.
Yeah, no, you're right. And the other thing is, I've chatted to a couple of people who've had anthologies out recently, and you can't, if you've got like, say, as we've got, I don't know, 10, 15 people involved in all our comics that are coming out, you can't never think that you'll be 10 times more successful and get the message out 10 times more. Because some of them don't really engage, some of them share friends, some of them just don't do it, they just don't engage with social media. That's not. But the point of it is that that's the only way you get your message out further is by other people posting it at the moment. Yeah. So it being reposted by someone else who even might share 2/3 of the same followers as yours, you're still getting that extra third.
There's also something to be said, I think, around, for instance, there are creators who have built up their entire following, like for instance on Instagram. Do you know what I mean? Like illustrators and cartoonists who have their cartoons on Instagram. And I know they've probably got them on Tapas or Webtoon, or they've probably got them on lots of different things. But they've built up their following on Instagram. So there's that. The people that follow them, if this creator is suddenly going somewhere else without necessarily saying something, the following can. Do you think they can turn sometimes against it? Like, why are they doing that?
Just get lost. Like,
why are they going over there when we've been supporting
like a shepherd in the flock? When they suddenly just go off and like you've lost some of your sheep, as it were, some of the followers. I mean, you only have to be on a platform that makes a couple of dubious business decisions, and the people are like, "Well, I'm out. I'm done. I'm not."
Or it changes the way the algorithm works, or has blue ticks, or the engagement.
DeviantArt and AI. Like we're going to start scraping all your work for AI, and everyone was like, "Oh, fuck this."
Yeah.
So you could have been fucking harvesting your whole business on one of these platforms, and then you just get rug pulled. It's kind of galling.
The Instagram algorithm as well stops you seeing a lot of the people you did before as well, because every 4th or 5th one is now an advert, isn't it? So there's that sort of message with you. But then again, it's a free service. I know we moan about it, but I'm not paying for Instagram. Do you know what I mean?
But there's people out there that want to read your comics and want to read your books. It's just kind of making that connection to try and put the two together. And I think that the old school press in the flesh of going to a con or getting your book in a shop and stuff like that does work. I mean,
I think it's
a podcast.
It's not a podcast. The long con.
In some ways, that we are reverting in a lot of ways to the pounding the pavement and meeting shop. It's wonderful when more and more creators are sending their books to indie comic shops, and the indie comic shops are working because they're working just like creators are. Do you know what I mean? To get people into their store and stuff. And I think when social media was at its highest, we weren't seeing so much of that. I think because everything was so online, but because this sort of backlash era that we're in, should we call it? Some people are finding that they're getting more traction when they have more of a connection to someone. Does that make sense? Like when when they're communicating,
personal connection.
Personal connection. It makes all the difference. I mean, it's the same with this show, isn't it? Yeah. We get emailed just out of the blue from people that clearly don't listen to the show. Although sometimes I do wonder about my peace of mind and if I'll ever be found by Jesus.
Or the psychics, or aliens. We're on a couple of cracking mailing lists, aren't we?
Can I come on the show? Don't you know? But I thought you'd already know.
Do you have guests on your show?
Do you talk about comics on your show?
Do you have guests on your show? Is still my favourite one, and we probably get that every month at least.
Every week probably.
So I mean,
that's social media. But in terms of like, and it feels like the reach with that's going to be an ongoing. How good is it? We don't know. There's no way. There's no real barometer of being able to tell it anymore because there's all these different social medias and followers go up and down, and where before you had someone had a strong following on Twitter, maybe not so much. So they're banking on what they built up 5 years ago. Much like the show.
No one will have the same numbers they had on Twitter or Facebook or anywhere that was going on 10 years ago.
Yeah.
It won't have it.
Yeah.
It just won't happen.
Yeah. So when that, and of course, if you're just starting out, or perhaps like later in the game when you just wanted to make comics, no matter what point you're just thinking, right, I need to get my stuff out there. It's daunting because where is there? There's so many comics. I mean, if you look at online services anywhere, whether if you make a web comic, there's billions of them. Even if you make a print comic that has a digital version, you go on something like Global Comics, there's so many comics on there.
So many, yeah.
All these different services. There's so many comics out there. So how do you reach an audience?
I have bear in mind we talk about small press comics every week. I read them and review them every week. I have never walked around a convention and only 10% of them I've seen before. Especially in the States. It's like I've never heard of any of these small press comics. Any of them. Yeah.
And I think for me, like, it seems like we're getting a second wave of people really pushing their stuff out there. It's certainly like getting to us. The tide from like different countries is reaching us later than before, and that's why sometimes when we do recommendations, your book could have been out for 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, or something like that. But we're discovering it for the first time, and if we recommended it, then it means we want other people to check it out. With small press, I think a book has a different lifespan, doesn't it?
Totally.
Yes. Yeah, which is why the whole sort of issues of a small press comic is a more difficult maths question, isn't it? Yeah, I think so, and I think why I'd often advise someone who's doing a small press comic to do a one-off story to start with.
I would say standalones all the time, rather than a run, because the audience, the amount of time it takes to put the comic out, and the amount of the audience sticking around is going to be so volatile. It's it's like if you get an issue 1 from someone, it's like 9 times out of 10 you're not going to get the issue 2.
Oh, we've seen that so many times.
And that's no kind of like comment on the creator at all. It's just kind of like that's just the way the process works. It's if you say to yourself, I'm going to bang out 5 issues, it's going to be a 5-issue miniseries. Like next month your wife could say, oh, I'm pregnant, I've got a kid on the way, and like you've got to put all that on the fucking kibosh, where you get a different job that requires
and we're so used to it being
input.
Monthly or the most bi-monthly for a comic series, aren't we? Because we're used to reading companies' comics, and to have something that comes out every year. Recently we had it with some great comics, but I've had to go back and read issue 1 because my memory isn't that good about where it left off, who's who.
Mate, the amount of comics you read as well, T, I doubt
it's difficult. It's my old memory.
So it's going to be tough for like a new creator starting up, like, I want to make a comic book, and they make the comic book. It's like, right, how do I get it out to people? And I mean, certainly sending it into podcasts, I think that's a great way. I mean, we get a lot of stuff, and we're always more than happy to talk about good books and help promote people.
I know a lot of podcasts get a lot of comics. Don't be down on your luck if you're down on yourself if you think they haven't talked about it either. I've sent comics to podcasts and they're not said anything. I think as well is don't limit yourself to people you believe you are ideologically aligned with either. I think there's a fucking real mess going on at the moment. Someone says, oh, he doesn't like trickle-down economics, I'm not sending him my comic. He doesn't like Peruvian farming, I'm not sending him my comic. Just send it out to everyone. You're never going to be ideologically aligned with anyone in the world. Completely.
Again, with us as well, we do this like as a kind of a side thing, a hobby, and like we all got full-time jobs, we've got families. It's like sometimes we just might miss your email, and it's not malicious. It's just life. It's
sometimes we just snowed out.
It is what it is.
We try our best, man. We really try our best. Sometimes my head's like porridge after a 16-hour day, and I'll email or message someone back. But it's not easy.
My comment sent in today. You flagged up on the ACP email. See,
what's that?
My recommend.
Emails,
so
that came from the recommends. I think Vince has got another one for maybe next week. And I've got 2 for this week. So it's like we are paying attention.
Because we always want to discover new comics. That's why we're here. But like, what about other avenues? And I'm just going to ask questions now about things that I know absolutely nothing about. and you guys are probably more internet savvy than me. I live in a cave. No, but the internet's good here, so I'm all right for pornography. What about other sort of avenues? And I'm just going to like things like Reddit, and because obviously there's huge community on like forums and Discords, all these different communities and stuff.
Depends what it is, doesn't
What's
it?
the value in those for a comic creator?
So I'm on R/Slack. R/Slack is
R/Slack. What's R/Slack?
R/Slack. R/Slack. My R/Slack is great for promoting comics. R/Slack is great. Everyone's very supportive. Yeah. Thank you to everyone who's backed us from there. That's just really lovely. And I'm on the 11 o'clock comics Slack, who have a Kickstarter channel on there, and they're super supportive and they're really good. You can't guarantee a lot of other communities will push it out, but you will definitely get some talk about it. You'll maybe get a couple of backers, that sort of thing. Yeah, it's really lovely. I've tried. I'm on a couple of Discord servers with people. Not much there for me. Might be for other people. I've tried Reddit.
With things like that, like Slack. I mean, Slack and Discord, similar sort of things, aren't they? So, and some, I think, in the States, Discord's predominantly the big one, right? Especially for like comics and games and stuff like that, isn't it? Right. Certainly, it's a big thing. So, when we're talking Slack, you guys might have a Discord that's doing exactly the same thing. Tell us about
Kayfabe was a good one for us. Kayfabe, when it was going, God bless them. That they reviewed Atomic Hercules, and we got a nice bit of sales, nice bit of promotion. A lot of people in America remembered it, talked to us about it. Yeah, that was good.
I've backed comics off of Reddit. There's a couple of comic subreddits that I go to, like all indie and small press ones, and people that post up their Kickstarter, and I'll be like, yeah, I'll back that. That's small press. Like,
we're great. Get it. We're great on Truth Social. It's really good for us. That's a joke. Yeah.
Well, I think I put back to one in the chat was in Netherlands. It posted his book up on. It was a Kickstarter, a link to a Kickstarter, but it was like, I've got my book on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Go and have a check it out. So I was like, okay. I think Kickstarter again, like if you start delivering a good book on time at a decent price and decent time frame, you can build up your following there. That seems to be a way of building up.
We got Comic Projects to Love, or whatever it is, on Kickstarter the other day.
Oh, brilliant! Nice. That's great.
No difference at all.
Oh, that's a shame.
God bless them. But thank you.
I keep thinking it's going to be like the fucking great, now it's it's a big time. People.
The waterfall begins. Yeah, the waterfall of money. But
I've done what? Maybe half a dozen books on Kickstarter and never got that. Never been in a project.
I mean, we got banned once, so do you know what I mean?
Well deserved.
So,
thank
you. But what about webcomics? Dan, obviously you are the webcomic daddy of us all, and I know you've spoken about the communities of webcomics and stuff. But what's that like now in terms of getting your book?
It's hard for me to kind of give it an accurate kind of reporting on it, because you got the Spider Forest community with their forum going on, but I don't have time to actively check in on that. There is large webcomic communities, but it's just, from personally speaking, there's only so many hours in the day. I can't keep up with it all.
Exactly, isn't it?
I can't keep up with it all.
Should you are we saying that you should find the one that you're most comfortable using, and you feel better about using, and just go for that? I mean, pepper in your appearance somewhere.
Do your carpet bomb of links and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But like, for instance, take the Spider Forest community one. If you're in there and you're chatting with people and you know lots of people in there, do you predominantly?
If you're having a good time as well.
Yeah.
Like that's
the whole
fun.
thing for me.
Yeah.
That's the motivational thing for me. It's like I'm only really pushing the Kickstarter because I want Falpy to get paid. Because I don't get paid for my Kickstarter, so none of the money goes to me, it goes to Falpy. So motivationally, that's why I do it, and to have fun. Otherwise, if it was just me pushing a comic, I wouldn't even stick on Kickstarter. I wouldn't give a fuck. I'd send it out to mates, and that would be it. I'm not after the popularity.
I just want people to read the
money.
fucking thing.
Yeah, that's all I want. Or people to enjoy it.
Yeah, that's it. It's that whole kind of like taking people on a ride, so to speak, and kind of giving the ups and downs, and just it's a storyteller, I guess. I guess we've got a bit of that in all of us.
But
I have more fun in creating it than I do in selling it. I think if you don't, I think there's something wrong with you.
That's the age-old thing, isn't it? Like, the bands, it's like, oh, we made this album and now we've got to tour it endlessly, or we've got to
playing live. I think they dig, but like doing the fucking junkets with the record companies, they're like, nah. Yeah. And I feel the same. It's like making it, meeting up with the creators, having a laugh, coming up with a story.
But you're already thinking about the next comic, though, aren't you? You already, and that can be an interesting thing, isn't it? Like, you're on the tour cycle, whether if it's conventions or whether it's posting on whatever social media. It's a tour cycle, isn't it, for your marketing campaign for your comic that you've just released. While you're doing that, there's many creators out there who are already 2/3 of the way through their next project.
Yeah, I mean, we've pulled back a bit from that. I think we all have, to be fair, pulled back from doing cons and stuff. The few cons that I tend to do just tend to be because me and Falpy think it's funny, really. Unless I'm doing it for no brow, to be fair. But both of you have pulled back from that as well.
Yeah, man, we've done the ill-fated MCM, but like there's such a wedge, and it's kind of like
it's money and time, and I think it's easy to have a certain opinion on something because your own personal opinion and experience of it wasn't so great. But I'm also completely open to the fact there are a lot of people who do really well from conventions. These conventions.
I don't knock MCM, and I'll tell you why. Because they invest in a lot of comics tables, and they also have a lot of comics sales places. They have a lot of back issue sales. They have a lot of tables selling graphic novels and comics. There's a lot of conventions, Hempstead Comic Con, that could fucking follow that in all honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one advertised near me on Facebook, and I said, "Is there actually any comics of this?" And no one got back to me, and someone said, "I went to the one last year. There wasn't any." So okay,
yeah.
MCMs ain't the villain. I've got to tell you, I think they're all right. Yeah.
What's that? Speaking of the Book of Faces, I mean, I've long since left it.
Yeah, me too.
But Dan, you keep your head in the game. What comics like on there in terms of like pages, communities, forums, etc.?
Man, it's absolutely fucking alive and well. There's loads of communities. There's more sort of small press and indie comics groups than I care to join because it would just be non-stop all the time.
Are there any particular you would recommend? Like, the quality of stuff?
There is. I'm not sure if I could connect. There's one called Connecting Comic Book Artists and Writers that once in a while like a job will come up, but there's so many people on there that are a bit shady. You kind of got to watch yourself. But there's a lot of people on there with comic books and pushing their Kickstarters or the crowdfunders. A lot of great work that goes up. It's worth checking a few of the groups out if you still got your Facebook account.
Yeah, I miss a lot of the back issue and the original art pages on Facebook. I think it's probably the only thing I really miss from there. Yeah.
You get a lot of people like who want to get into it. And they say, I want to start a comic book. How do I go about it?
There's so many people out there like that, isn't it? That's the thing is, like, sometimes I think we all get lost in the weeds of, we've been reading comics or we've been making comics or whatever for years and years. And, there's the jaded old person in us sometimes that sometimes we lose sight of all of these bright-eyed people that just, and I'm not saying young people there, because sometimes it's just you can be whatever age and just be like, I really want to make comics. That you could just think, wow, I've just discovered that comics aren't the thing that I thought they were going to be, and I can make them. And there's so much energy there, I think, and I think sometimes that should be nurtured, and there should be more places where people can go and feel comfortable promoting their books and getting the word out there, especially like. If you think if you're making a comic and you think, oh, I'm not sure if this is like, people are going to like this. I like making it, but I'm not sure if anyone else will. That comic has an audience. It absolutely has an audience. It doesn't matter,
Right.
Like, for instance, 10 years ago, I probably would have told you that I'm not the audience for abstract comics. I am now. Do you know what I mean? And I'm open to those sort of things. And that's also an area of comics I've seen get bigger. Have you noticed that there's more people?
Well, we've been introduced to it more, but like it's in the execution, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Yeah.
That said, I've seen the worst 3-panel human comics I've ever seen get thousands and thousands of likes and loads of comments like lol, LMFAO, and then I see like I've got a new superhero, and it's like Spider Dude or Iraq Man or something, and you're like, fuck me. And then you look, and it's like, wow, this is amazing. Where can I get this? And it's like dozens and dozens of comics. You just what?
Yeah, I realise I'm living in the Matrix at that point.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. So, like, in terms of reaching out, what would be our final word on this if there was to have one? You know, because there's so many people thinking like, how I've got my comic, how do I get it out to a lot of people?
I know we had a little chat beforehand about things I've learned from the recent or current Kickstarter is lay groundwork. If you're going to launch a Kickstarter, you've got to go months ahead. So we've done a weekly podcast or a weekly interview or a weekly exercise on the Tribute Press Substack every week for like the last 8 weeks. And we've laid the groundwork. We've shown panels, teased artist profiles, artist interviews, talk about releasing it, and you got to lay the groundwork. Otherwise, it's pointless.
You don't jump in the deep end of the pool straight away, do you?
Yeah, you got to get people ready, excited for it. There is a time limit to that. You can't do it for too long.
Yeah,
you know these. I was looking at my favourite bit on the Kickstarter app. You have faves or things that you've liked, and some stuff on there. I think how has that not come out yet? Yeah. You know, it's like they've sort of go, sign up for the Kickstarter coming soon, and it was like a year ago, and you're like, no, that's silly. But you got to keep the momentum going.
I've seen posts when people said of like my book's got hardly any backers on Kickstarter, and then I look on their account and they've not promoted it, they've not backed any other books. It's like their first book, and it's like if this is all above board and legit, you can't just go cold like that. You won't get anyone backing it.
It's walking that line as well. So I think there's a walking a line between friendly, enthusiastic promotion and like if you've had 20 Kickstarters in the past, do not send a fucking message out on every Kickstarter in the past.
No,
you know, don't be like that person.
I was gonna ask that because one of the questions I was gonna say is, can you unsubscribe to?
Yeah, you can.
You can.
I've done it.
Right. When we're off air, please tell me how to do that.
I've done it.
Because I get an awful lot of like, and I can understand like why some people are like, you know, it's just the same. But when you get 3 or 4 messages
in a day,
I'm fine with it. If you release a new book on the campaign, I might be interested in that. But like, don't fucking keep every single update on a campaign. If I
bought issues 1 to 5 of your comic, there is no point in you sending me an email out from each of those Kickstarter campaigns. It's just not. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's a tricky one. It goes into the old school sort of marketing stuff, and there's the wiser men than us that can tell you how to kind of do that.
Yeah.
But
and write some punchy. I'll see if I can share it with you later. But there's a way to write sort of PR. There's a punchy. So I was chatting to a lady I work with who was talking about PR the other day, and she was saying the only criticism she's ever got around her PR stuff that she sends out is she's written too much. So I think her boss said to her, "Look, I can see you rushed this because you've written too much." So the art is in writing a load and then taking it down, stripping everything out until it's a 1-sentence title, and the following thing should be 3 lines, and then you get a little bit extra. But there's no one will read more than 4 sentences if you put out a bit of PR that they've never heard of. Nobody's reading it all.
Yeah.
You got to sum it. It's sad to say, but you got to sum it.
You got to get them in those first couple of lines, man. Otherwise people just move on. Especially
I've tried the stuff like this is stuff your granny will hate. That's what I've put out, and that might people click on it. You know, you got to have that hook. You really got to have a hook to get people to look at it. Yeah, and it can't be. Oh, by the way, he's a barbarian that used to live. Blah, 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 blah. Nobody cares.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah. Same as like when you're doing a Kickstarter campaign, that kind of your title, and then you got the little bit of blurb. That's got to be fucking punchy as fuck and get people in.
There's a reason signs above pubs in America say strippers, booze, snooker. There's a reason it says that above a pub. You know. Sort of.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, shout out to if you're listening to this, and just say you're not part of the Slack community and you've got a comic book or you've got some comic ideas or whatever, please do get in touch with us and let us know that you listen to the show and you've got a book and, like, you know, because you're the people that we want to hear from. We want to see what your books are like, and because
we'll shout your book out.
We're all on this fucking journey together, and thank you to anyone who sends fucking stuff through to us. And I know we've got the awesome Slack community, and like we're good friends with a lot of these people and stuff. But I'm sort of more talking to the people that aren't on there, who perhaps you clicked on this thinking, oh, how can I get my comic out to new people? Well, we're new people, and so definitely send some stuff to us. Even if you just like, I've got this, it's not finished yet. I mean, we have had messages like that before, where people are like, this is still a work in progress, but what I'd appreciate to hear your thoughts on it. And even if we're like, it's just an email back or whatever, I think communication.
Two of mine this week. These are for longer projects. Can you give me a little bit of a critique on it?
Yeah,
that's what I got asked.
Yeah,
man, I'm more than happy to give anyone kind of critical feedback.
Yeah, yeah.
But
and when we say that, when we say the word critical,
constructively critical,
constructively, we're not going to be arseholes about it. We're not going to tell you that you shouldn't make comics, because you should make comics. We might just sort of say, oh, the lettering could be tidied up, or there could be something.
I can't read this, or
things like that. And that's something that we should all be open to hearing, because if we're not open to hearing that, then our comics are just not going to come out very well when we.
That's more a you problem than an us problem.
Yeah. Totally. And that's the general attitude thing for life, though, isn't it? The kind of willing to take back constructive criticism.
Yeah, because as Dan said many times, and we all agree with him, every time you get a book printed, the first time you read it, you'll notice a mistake in it that no one else has noticed.
Thank God I did it on a test print last week. Yeah.
So there's always going to be something, and it's always a learning process, but one that you should enjoy. So, email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. if you want ask any questions, advice, or send your comic in whatever stage. We get lots of emails about like Kickstarters and stuff like that, but I'm talking separate from that. If you're working on something, and because I think we should all be striving to get better at these things. I mean, whenever I host this show and stuff, and I'm listening to people, I'm basically bleeding them dry of information.
Mining information.
We're mining them, because a lot of the time the guests will say something, and like the three of us afterwards will be like, didn't think about that. Perhaps we should do that.
That's a great bit of insight.
Well, he was a bit of a wanker, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Dan, have you joined the army? It looks like a shirt looks like you're in the army.
Yeah, he's a jarhead.
I got a green army. Got a green army top. Just need NAM or something written on it.
Yeah, USA.
I don't think they had that when they went to Vietnam, Dan. They just had NAM written across the t-shirts.
I thought that was standard dress.
Standard GI dress.
Yeah. NAM. Where are you getting? It's in a t-shirt.
I'll tell you what. Reading comics around those times was probably very different from what it is now, because reading comics in general has changed quite a bit, which is another topic, isn't it, Tony?
Oh yeah. So I posed. So before we came on, we said, or yesterday, we said what would be a good subject to talk about, and I guess this week gets us chat to each other. And Dan did the last one, and I did how has the way we read and enjoy comics changed? And I posed it as being in the life of this podcast. So if we said roughly 10 years, there's a couple of things for me. Obviously, I was absolutely anti-digital before when I started this show. Yeah. Nick Brokenshaw sent me a free comic on Comixology, causing me to create an account. So I read now. At least half the comics I read are digital now, possibly more. So I'm on Global Comics, Marvel, DC, Comic House, and Viz. I'm on a number of reading apps. When we started this show, I had a pull list in a single comic shop. I think it was Orbital. When we started. Obviously, then we had COVID, and it went to a mail order thing that went to shit, and then I moved to Gosh. Because I'm finding I'm not getting the same comics from Gosh that I could get elsewhere. I've split my list into two sources, so I get most of my comics from Gosh, and I get some more from a mail order service. So I've never really done that mail order service before, and I think it's working. I think so far it's been a bit of experiment for the last few months that I've been keeping you guys up to date with. My life is now more 9 to 5. 7 to 7. So I'm reading before work quite a lot and reading after work more, where it was more sort of reading on a commute, I guess.
Yeah.
What about you guys?
Do you want to go first, V, or shall I?
You can go, Dan.
Okay. I've kind of not. I wasn't as hardcore about like the reading, not digitally, because I did a lot more webcomic reading, but mine's pretty much all 90% digital.
Right.
I've got like Shonen Jump, Global Comics, the various web comics I keep up to date with. I've been getting the G.I. Joe, the Energon Universe stuff, buying more trades as opposed to single issues. I don't know about you guys. Sometimes I buy a single issue like digitally, like the other one I spoke to the other week, the Carl Stark serial killer one. And I've read the first issue. I was like, right, I'm not going to read any more of that. I'm going to buy the trade.
Okay.
You got me into that, Dan. That's fucking.
The definition of waiting for the trade.
It's a lot of the time. It's like the digital was like a taster edition for like, will I like the whole thing? And it's like, yeah, I will. I'll get it. There's a couple of times I think in the past when we had like the event books and like big game and stuff where I've got it on date. I think the most recent one would be the Punisher stuff. Is just
okay.
That was last year, wasn't it? God, that went by fast. But 9 times out of 10 is digital. And that's one of the hardest things as well now. I don't know where, apart from getting recommendations from you and other guys on Slack on socials, I don't know where to go to get book recommends. For me, the comics media is just absolutely fucking shit.
Yeah.
It's been terrible.
It's been sort of business captured. So I feel like they're all a bit in the pay, not in the pay literally, but a bit in the thrall of certain whoever they're sort of friends with.
Their paymaster is.
Yeah.
We can't say anything bad about this, or we can only talk about this. It's like we can't talk about them because they're like you mentioned earlier. Politically, they're kind of not aligned to us, and it's like, well, if he's a Democrat and you're a Republican, or that should have no impact on the fucking new review and their comic or talking about it. It really, I find that whole very frustrating.
I hope one day that we people just want to read the comics and they just ignore all that. I really hope. I really hope they do, and I can.
Society hasn't been like this before, and we've walked it back from it because you can't stay polarized in this degree all the time. Surely, surely, like common sense has got to work out that you can't keep doing this because you got to talk and interact and like. Yeah, well, but back onto the comic stuff.
Yeah.
I don't go to any of the comic book news sites because they're not news. They're not. I don't know what the fuck they are. Just promo pieces.
Yeah.
Another arm of marketing for the big boys.
Yeah.
All the small boys. Said, there's Instagram reviewers that check out that put books up, and I was like, oh, that sounds great. They all escape me now, but there's a couple I follow. Who review books.
There's a couple of sort of reasonable people on YouTube.
Yeah.
They're hard to find.
Yeah.
There's a dude who does omnibuses I quite like. He'll talk about the new omnibuses that are coming in. He seems to get the breaking news. So I like to watch his one.
Sometimes I've not listened to it so much anymore, but the Thinking Critical ones when Wes
I haven't really listened to him much. A while ago I listened to a couple.
But they kind of moved away to kind of they've gone a bit more kind of political themselves and everything's kind of like a bit sensationalized, and I was like, I just want to hear about the book and if it's worth a shout or not.
Very few people seem to talk about what happens in the book anymore, and that's what I'm interested in. So it'd be like, Bouncing Boys appeared in the Legion of Superheroes. I mean, oh right, okay, that's what interests me. Not like John Smith's on this book. I didn't like him when he was on Green Lantern. I don't care.
Yeah.
You know.
It seems to be everyone's got the more interest in. I don't know. Do they have the more interest in the creators and the politics and all the stuff that's going on behind it than the actual books themselves?
I think for a lot of those things, like now, what people lose sight of is in 10 to 15 years. This may sound harsh when I'm going to say this. When 10 to 15 years, unless like it's a massive name creator, people aren't going to mention the creator on it. They're going to mention the story that they.
Does seem to be going that way. We don't seem to be creating evergreens anymore.
I mean, and that is kind of how it was back in the day, like when you were a kid as well. Like, you know, unless you were, I mean, I didn't know about the Marv Wolfmans or all that. You know, I know they had like the box at the bottom, but it was the stories that were the classics. I didn't, you know, especially when I was younger, reading them, I was just all about the stories, and you know, it was only after a while that I became realised, I'm a fan of this creator or something. It was like the story is king.
Well, that's an interesting. You bring that up, Vince. What is the balance between you reading old comics and new comics? So if we say old comics are more than 10 years ago,
I find more joy in older comics.
Right.
When I say this, a lot of it is mainstream stuff. There's certainly a lot of indie and small press stuff that just fucking gives me life because it's not like any of the other stuff. Do you know what I mean? And I mean, it's usually we're a nostalgia-based fandom.
We're lucky that we can get all this old stuff now.
Yeah,
we never used to be able
to.
to.
So, and because of the nature of this hobby and medium that we like, half the time it's like, oh, I used to love that comic when I was a kid, and you can go back and rediscover it. So therefore, you're reconnecting with these lost moments in time or something like that.
Them nostalgia vampires, aren't they?
Yeah. I'm absolutely a nostalgia vampire as well. Do you know what I mean? Like the fucking love I have for some toys from the 80s, even if I fucking watch a documentary that tells me that it was just a broken corporate decision to sell these toys with a cartoon, I don't care. I still love the fact that because that's not when I was a kid, that's not what I was experiencing,
But also with the older stuff is like I'll read the books that I was reading at the time, but then I also read stuff that was adjacent to it that I didn't read, and I'm still fucking loving that stuff. Like there'd be the older Thor stuff that I didn't read at the time, but then I picked that up and like say he's tackling the Wrecking Crew, and I was like, oh fucking this is great.
I like to do little reading projects, so I find like it might be a reread or a new read. So I did the reread of the whole of X Factor last year, the Peter David stuff, and fucking loved it again. So good.
Great. Yeah.
And then I did some of it I'd read and some of it I didn't. I read the Secret War. Remember when Secret Wars was all these different minis? I read all of those, and I'm that much of a nerd. I have a little checkbook, and I check them off as I'm going along and stuff like that. I love, massive wanker, and I love doing that, man. Finding there's nothing better than I'm about to do the sort of pre-return of Kirby Captain America because I bought the omnibus for it the other day, and it's just like a little reading project I have that is just for me. I don't have to worry about keeping up with what's happening in Wolverine or something. I can just read it.
Comics are joy, aren't they? Just fucking find the joy. If it's something, if you only find joy from their latest stuff, just find that. But if you like the older stuff, it's there.
There was an issue of X Factor that Peter David done, and I can't remember what issue it is, but the whole team go into therapy and one at a time.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, with
that's fucking
Samson.
Great. Is that the one bit with Quicksilver has stayed with me like since I read it, and he explains like what his life is like, and he says, imagine like your life is filled with people who are using the ATM in front of you and can't remember their PIN number or they don't know what they're doing.
Right. Yeah.
And he says, now do you understand why I'm frustrated? Because
that's amazing.
He'd be annoyed with
that's fucking
everything.
Brilliant.
Yeah, because everything's taking so long for when he's kind of doing stuff and you're so slow.
That's the thing about Peter David. He got character for me. I'm not a lover of everything he's done, and he can be somewhat curmudgeonly, as I experienced having a row with him. But he does get character. He does that classic Claremont style. Adds to the action some soap opera and it engages the reader, and he did that with the Hulk stuff. Do you remember when Hulk joined that fucking group that lived in a mountain and all that sort of thing? And he does that quite well. He did it in Star Trek. He did it in some Babylon 5. I like all that.
I mean, if you said that as a Hulk story, like him joining that group and they've got their own like little war going on. Yeah, that seems fucking nuts for a Hulk pitch, but it worked great.
With some great artists as well.
Yeah. There's so much like joy that I find now with like older comics, especially like some of the UK weeklies and stuff like that. Do you know what I mean? Just through like osmosis, like I'm focused on one strip, but by buying like these back issues and like just reading them, I'm discovering something else. Do you know what I mean? And just the workmanship and obviously I'm getting
the same hits through that Energon universe. I tell you.
Yeah,
like it's absolutely that it's hitting that vein of
because I think
unencumbered fun.
It's doing something that is rare, and it should be so obvious, but it rarely happens. Is like it's one of those. We just want you to respect what came before, and then tell a new story with it. Just add to it.
Don't
disrespect what came before. Don't ignore it. Don't fucking change everything. It worked. Build on it, and it feels like with what they're doing with the G.I. Joe and everything, it's like, well, they built a house. We're just building an extension and repainting it, and like it's like
they understand it.
And so many times that doesn't happen, does it?
Yeah,
and it's just, and it should be just obvious.
People. I felt the same way about having just done the X Factor reread. I was reading because Madrox is now a background character in some story about Dazzler singing in a concert. He's a roadie.
He was a fucking massive character in that film.
And I'm like, was such a good character. All that stuff about his duplicate had had an affair and he didn't know, and this sort of thing, and his on-off relationships with a couple of them, and it was just so well done. And the next, he's just this sort of comedy background character. Somebody thought, he can be a roadie because he can split into 14 people.
Yeah, no. For me, he was one of those characters that also veered on if Marvel had a Vertigo line, that character would kind of walk the edge.
Would bleed between the two.
Yeah. And in terms of like my reading habits, I'm going to echo Dan in many ways. Like most of my stuff's digital. As I said before, I've got the Global Comics sort of subscription, and I'm discovering, but I actively like. I sift for gold. Sometimes I consider it's almost like I'm one of those
panhandling.
Yeah, I'm panhandling. Like, where's the gold? Because there's an awful lot of dirt, but you never know when something's going to pop up, and sometimes you have to go past that cover because God bless you, small press and indie creators, but sometimes your covers don't do your brilliant comics justice, and it can go either way.
Yeah.
But sometimes I've read a fucking brilliant comic that has had a okay cover.
And to be fair, let's face it, Marvel and DC do the opposite at the moment.
Yeah.
West Coast Avengers, anyone?
Yeah. So and I've been a Comixology reader like for the new purchases, and especially when it comes to like single issues, unless I'm pledging to a Kickstarter. Kickstarter's not as often anymore, but it's a comic store front for me in a lot of ways. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes if something crops up, I'll pay for the digital on that one. But I think with print, once again, echoing Dan, like 90% digital. The stuff we obviously get through, and then there's the stuff that we read and stuff. I don't have like a local comic store and I don't have a pull list or anything like that. In terms of reading printed work, I've grown. I'm definitely more of a into the trades, but I'm in this weird larger collection phase, omnibuses and stuff. I've hit this sort of like
you with your disposable wages, your big shelves.
Jesus. But the problem is, you get the omnibuses and you've got to shift some books to fucking get them to fit. So that becomes a.
Here's a bit of advice. Spend a load of money making a garden office, and then just start filling it with omnibuses.
That's a good idea.
Yeah.
You have to.
I don't think where I got that from.
Put me in touch with someone who's done that. But also, I think I don't have a local comic book store, but one thing that I do enjoy doing is going into independent bookshops that have, and we were talking about like discovering books like without any, and I'm like Dan, I don't pay attention to news sites or anything like that. I usually read comics without reading the synopsis, when we're doing the recommends and stuff, and when I read the synopsis, kind of ruins it for people that haven't read the comics, so I'm glad I didn't do that, and I'm going to discuss one later. But when I'm in those independent bookstores and I'm looking at those shelves, that in amongst the ones that the Guardian love, all of those books, there's loads of other independent books that are, translated books that are similar to what Live in the Line, last week's guest, sort of putting out stuff that completely fucking passed me by, that I had no idea was out, and it could be, I don't know, a graphic novel or a comic translation of Beowulf or some William Shakespeare book or just something like that, and you open it up and holy shit, it's some of the most gorgeous comic art you fucking ever seen, and I never knew about it. I find real joy. Half the time, those books are so expensive I can't afford them. But I still enjoy sort of going in and seeing those. And I think independent bookshops are they can be such a vital source for people that have those collections. I think, rather than when it goes beyond the issues, if you've got a decent publisher that can get your book into an indie book, I mean, because you should support your indie bookshops and indie comic shops anyway. And sometimes, yes, there's that cynical, there's this lovely book, collection of a bigger publisher. There's a lovely collection there. Have a look through it. Looks lovely. I must put that on a wish list somewhere to see if I can find it cheaper. Yeah. There are those sort of moments. So yeah, in terms of the printed medium, unless I'm buying a goodie bag, or a small presser, I'm not buying individual printed books from like bigger companies. Yeah. I'm just not. I'm reading them digitally and whinging about the price, yes, but I'm still but I am waiting for trades or collecting trades and stuff. I do like a double dip. That's nice. I wish I did it more. I wish I did it more than I used to. I used to do it a lot more.
Fucking triple dip these days when you get a nice hardcover out as well.
Yeah. And that's why, and when it comes to like, especially with omnibuses now, that's why, I mean, we're talking about waiting for the trades. Part of my brain's like, I'm going to wait for the omnibus, which means you wait a little bit longer because there's like 4 volumes of a series, 5 volumes, something like that. But at some point there's going to be a slightly oversized hardcover version. Do I wait for that? Do you know what I mean? Do I collect that?
I find that the nature of the comics industry PR at the moment is you don't get it spoiled anyway because nobody's interested by the time it hits fucking issue 30. And everyone's talking about some drama the artist or the writer's been involved in. Nobody really cares. So I'm not getting stories that are spoiled to me. Some that have big things in them, I'm like, oh, fucking hell, nobody mentioned this.
No one talked about
it.
Yeah, so, I used to... Back in the day, probably 10, 15 years ago, I probably had some comic sites bookmarked on the internet tab. No longer. I don't have it. And,
I'm the same.
And even then, when they weren't bookmarked, they probably went into catching a headline on social media and then clicking the link. But I don't do that anymore.
I'm so cynical of a lot of these sites now as well.
Absolutely,
a lot of the clickbait titles we get. Yeah.
A lot of it, they'll be talking about a spat someone have on social. 2 creators have a spat on social media, and it's like, then Joe Blog said this, and there'd be a link to their tweet or a screen cap, and it's like, why am I reading
giving
this?
me a headache. It's just giving me a headache. I don't care about it all.
But if you have stuff like when talking about the process or what you're doing, and there's Instagram videos, I've got like a separate playlist on people doing stuff on Photoshop and Illustrator. And I see a technique, and it's like, that's going in there. Rarely do I go back and look at it, but like some of the stuff people do, I was like, that's amazing.
I'll tell you some of the things I like to watch on YouTube are people leafing through long boxes. We've just got a camera on the long box,
nice,
and you're seeing it's in that issue. Oh, it's in that issue, like that. Or people walking around, like somewhere like Heroes of Baltimore, somebody walking around. I don't have the sound on. I just like to see the fucking when they close in on the wall books, that sort of thing. I just have it on. It's like my peaceful place while I'm trying to work. I'll have that going on on the screen. I love that. Yeah.
I have been looking at a couple of courses because I've seen a lot more of that, like comic creation courses, and there's the right
so
stuff.
many courses. Everyone's doing workshops and character design courses. I'm getting links for them all. Well, I
get the writers retreat stuff. I'm not very dubious about that
because it was like there's one like doing robots, and I thought that looks interesting. It's like you get 20 hours of videos, and it's like perspective, and it's like I can do the work with that. And a lot of it was like, I could probably jump over 2/3 of this easy and only be interested in a little bit, and I might see that and think, okay.
Also, I mean, some of these are really valid, useful resources for people, and certainly if you know any that are really good for comic creators, please do let us know, and we'll
let us know what they are. Yeah, some people just do it for free. I'll tell you what, I did get invited years ago to a writers comic retreat, and what they said is like, well, we all go and we cook together, and we charge you through the arm for it, and you sort of sit around, and then in the evening we'll talk about some comics and stuff. And I'm thinking, I'll do that with you fuckers every week for free. I'm not travelling to the other end of the country and paying loads of money to cook my own meals and talk to people about comics.
Sometimes I do think though as well. I mean, there's also a difference between people who just want to draw cool characters and character design and like stuff like that, which is brilliant if you want to do character concept. But that doesn't always translate. I don't think anyway. Doesn't always translate to what will work on a comic book page.
No.
There's character design, and then there's stuff that works on the comic page.
Yeah, I always think character design is almost a bit more made for movies and animations. Sometimes.
Totally, yeah.
Stuff I see anyway,
Yeah.
Mate, for the comic, they need to be pared down as much as possible.
Yeah.
There's times where I've drawn stuff and someone said, "Well, I've got Joe Blogs to like do this character design." You're like, "Fuck's sake!" Like,
try drawing that fucking 18 times today. Yeah.
So that when people sort of say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to teach you how to make a comic book in 3 days or something like that," you sort of think, "Okay." Are you?
Yeah, I know.
Whereas I think there's people not necessarily telling you how to do it, but useful resources that I know, like the Etherington brothers, with all their books and stuff and their free stuff that they put online and stuff. But they're just constantly, putting.
Yeah, they are. They put it for free, don't they?
Yeah,
and they're great books to get. I think people recommend them. I'll tell you, I got in a funny conversation with someone once, and I can't say who it was, but I got in a conversation with somebody about comics, and there's a lot of let's just say there's a lot of experts out there.
Yeah.
Let's just say that. Let's say that's a fact.
Yeah.
And and I happen to say, I'm on a podcast with a couple of buddies who talk about comics every week. Yeah, I'm on a podcast too about comics. And it became like, I've got an elephant and you've got a box for it. It became one of those, and I thought, no, I got to fucking back out of this conversation like this. And so I thought I'll be polite. Well, all right, have you got a link for it? And he says, yeah, it's about Spider-Man animated movies. And I'm like, no, I'm backing out of this conversation straight away.
So you tell him I'm going on holiday. I'm going on holiday to Tenerife, and they say, "Oh yeah, I'm going to 12 Reef."
Yeah. Yeah, I got a podcast.
Sorry, I had to put that in.
Yeah.
Fucking love that
I got
one.
a podcast too. It's like that, and you're like, okay, yeah, all right, that's fine. It's fine. What's it about? Animation. Fuck off then. Go fuck yourself.
Yeah. How many episodes you got? 24. Try over 500, motherfucker.
And that person keeps emailing me still.
Oh, brilliant.
Talk to me about it. Yeah, good.
Yeah. Sorry, Tony, I'll stop emailing you.
Yeah. I'm not seeing that film.
But one thing about books and stuff, I mean, obviously, it's always going to change. And it'll definitely going to be interested to see how it's going to be moving forward. One thing I said at the start of the year, and I'm going to hold my hands up, I haven't started yet delving into it, is webcomics, like just trying to discover some more decent webcomics and new ones, or catching up on ones. Like certainly Dan's recommended a load of ones that I need to sort of catch up on.
You could always go through the top 100 webcomics, TWC, top webcomics. They do it. It's like trouble is that's user voted. It's not.
Yeah.
You can game that system, but as a kind of like way to start, you can always try that and say, "Oh, see what's on the top 10."
Yeah.
Ben Mara's one is back. The Ben Mara daily webcomic is back. I fucking love that. That's great. Yeah.
Okay, I have to see that.
The week, I think Thursday, Friday was just about him getting a blowjob.
Lovely.
But you got
all
guys.
Ages, all ages.
We follow him on the Instagram. Go look at it. It's really good. Yeah.
Simon Handsome and the old Mega Mog ones. They're great on Instagram.
I've read them. I must go on there. Yeah.
So just to tie into our Instagram, we did put a shout out. I'm not going to run through the replies today. I'm just going to repeat the question to my lovely hosts here. Sort of, if you're reading a webcomic and you're a big fan of it, do you buy print editions of that webcomic? Would you?
I've done that.
Would you?
I read so few. The only one I buy is Dan's. Yeah, as a physical copy.
Me and you would have bought Scurry, but that fucking the cost of it was
that's
astronomical.
Right.
Yeah. That's with someone else now. That's published through someone else now. I've noticed.
Is it on Amazon or something?
I got a couple of. I can't remember now who's doing it. It's not Mad Cave, is it? No, it's not them.
Most of them don't put out collections. Most of the stuff I read.
Yeah. Or I look out for like Kickstarters and stuff. Like there's a lot of the webcomics. Like there's one called The Bucket Brigade, which I've recommended before. It's sort of like a tabletop role playing sort of. It's four panel sort of like joke sort of stuff. And he put out a collection. I was like, oh, I definitely want to have a book of this. Do you know what I mean?
It can live on its own, as it were. That book.
And I've got a few books on my shelves that started off as webcomics, and I've got the.
You did one. Stalkerville.
Oh yeah. That's over there.
Oh,
I've got that over there.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Could I make that now?
I don't...
My desk used to be over there, so it was always to my right, so I could grab it.
Nice.
Yeah. I've moved my desk there, but it's over
Could
there.
you do that?
Shelf,
Could you go back to that concept? Would it work again?
I mean, it's fairly. I think it was kind of an evergreen concept because it was just jokes. I had like a Monday to Friday 4-panel paste sort of joke. It was all done on Illustrator back in the day. I kept it very simple.
Man, that fucking must have taken time.
In a way, but you as with any sort of artistic endeavor, you find the shortcuts, you find the templates. You know, it's sort of you copy and paste and figure out. It was sort of simple to begin with, and then as you tweak it, you realise that the face has more. You can do more with expressions and stuff like that, and then it's just a case of what is the joke. And sometimes some of them were just fart or poo jokes. They were just literally, what am I going to do now? I don't need to be highbrow. It's just going to be a long, someone just saying wank at the end of it. Do you know what I mean? It's something like that.
I did a webcomic every day for a year.
Yeah, you did.
I like the Barbarian.
I like the Barbarian. Yeah.
You can still find it. I did it, and then Paul Rose took it on after that. But I like to think we had a few little meanings there. We used sort of parallels and analogies and metaphors.
Yeah.
And, There's a lot of boobs, to be fair.
I didn't really have any metaphors. It was just people talking about having sex with roadkill or something like that.
Mate, it's fucking hard to do, isn't it? Like do a comic a day, 5 days.
I used to write it. It was only 3 panels, so I'd write it on the train on the way into work every morning. It's quite easy for me. I didn't have to draw it.
Yeah. It was the experience, like as you know, Dan, of working ahead. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
go work ahead.
You know, because when I was doing it back in the MySpace days, which is where Stalkerville was posted, you know, it wasn't a panel a day. It was like Monday you had 1 strip, Tuesday 1 strip, Wednesday, you know, so it was like 5 strips. A lot of work. So it was 5 strips, and the way I'd work it is like from Monday to Friday there was one little arc. You know, those two characters similar. Yeah, those 2 characters that are interacting for that week. Do you know what I mean? And like little stories. I mean, I need to go, but I know some people that read it really, really enjoyed it. And I fell in love with those characters. But
it's hard. I've seen one of them. They try to tell like a narrative, an ongoing narrative, but with the 3 panels. But sometimes they don't have a joke, and it's like it's kind of the joke's got to be the first thing, and then
there's a rhythm to them, isn't there?
Yeah. You got to have a joke.
We built up sort of a cast. By introducing people in jokes, so you could bring them back in. We had the sheriff was this woman, and with this little sort of elf dude who was a bit of a pervert, and you know we built up, and you could drop them in again. But I mean that was because we did 350 episodes of it.
Yeah, and like I had a cast of characters that you can just be like, right, this is going to be about this person. As you did more of them, you realise there was some through lines. There was some continuing jokes. You could play back on it. I did it because my strips were like 4 panels, and I have a certain comedic. Everyone has their own comedic timing, don't they? But I would have the sort of like I don't know, dialogue, pause, punchline. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There was a panel that was there. You wait for the joke.
Yeah, we use that pause panel as well. It's really fun to use.
Yeah, it's so good to use that. Yeah,
I've used it in comics since as well. You know, that sort of almost like double take.
Yeah, sometimes it's the same artwork, isn't it? Just 2 people looking at each other, but when the joke hits.
I mentioned it before, that Invincible panel. There's that one page when like Invincible, Mark's talking to the comic shop owner. He goes, "Don't you think like artists that repeat panels like it's really lazy?" And it's just like 5 panels of him sitting there, and then underneath it's the comic shop owner for another 5 panels. Exactly the same. Just says no.
Dear.
Nice.
Yeah, but yeah, I think. Do you think webcomic creators, on the whole, want their books to be printed? Do you think that's the end game for a lot of people?
It's gonna be very subjective, isn't it? I mean, everyone wants to be the next Law Olympus.
Yeah.
And fucking get a massive big deal.
But I don't think when that was started, they didn't necessarily think.
No, probably not.
Yeah, I'm gonna be.
I don't know much about that, but for every one of those, there's fucking millions that didn't go anywhere. So
Yeah.
Don't be the one person think, oh, I'm going to do this and
Yeah.
fucking it's going to go gangbusters.
And there's some books that have a break and then come back and stuff. Like I remember probably 6 months ago catching up on Rising Sand. Do you remember Rising Sand?
I was going to say that
was really probably years ago, wasn't it?
Fucking-
Didn't the person from Rising Sand do your little Twitter avatar or something?
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yeah. She drew me and me, Joe, and Bobby. Oh.
Nice. I think they left Twitter, so I don't really see that much.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know where they've gone.
But like if you, I'll tell you what, I'm just gonna look it up.
That's
It used to be
fantastic
amazing,
book.
didn't it? That Twitter was the place you go for everything, couldn't you?
That was
Pretty
comics
much.
Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, it's become like just a load of clickbait stuff now.
RisingSand.glass. I always remember they had a very
Glass.
unique sort of. But that's it's still going, like on 192 pages. Last posted on the 12th of March. So
Okay.
There you go.
yeah, that's the thing. Is like some of them are just going, aren't they? They're still going. They have breaks and hiatuses because, as we know, like Dan with Vanguard, you go away, you do some work, and then you come back with a plan, and So
Dan gets employed by everyone now, so
Yeah.
yeah.
Still true to the OG though. I'll make sure Vanguard's finished.
Yes. I can't wait to see. I mean,
I've had 2 issues of fucking build up for this finale. It's
Do you are you concerned about the weight of, like you say, 2 issues of build up, 10 years of build up for this, and obviously you've had storylines and stuff in your head and things have branched off and done different stuff, but you've stayed the course for it. Do you ever have moments of feeling the pressure of
Not really.
sticking the landing?
I just do my best and have fun doing it. And
you're
then
just making it for you.
I try my best to make it as good as I possibly can, but like I've realised I'm not doing it as a full-time job, so I've got limited resources I can do it with. I just try my best.
You fucking smash it though. The amount of work that
thank you.
you put into that, and not just that, but posting up daily, like when the
people need to go back to page 1 and read through. I think there's a lot of new people we've met recently. I think they could do with going back and reading it all the way through because it's a great read all the way through.
Yeah.
Oh, cheers.
Yeah.
I've made like mistakes all the way through, like writing choices and art choices.
And I think there's something to be said with that as well, because obviously there's the work that you're doing now and there's the work that was at the beginning, and for people that want to discover a webcomic that's been going around for a long time, and we always want to start at episode 1, issue 1, something like that. You've got to be open to watching it grow, because if you see the latest page and it looks fucking amazing, and it's like 250 pages, you go back,
you're like, oh.
And even if it's still very good,
there's a 10-15 year time difference for me and Vanguard, so like there's a massive difference art-wise.
Yeah.
You can see me try stuff out and into stuff, and then that doesn't work, so I move away from it.
We should do something when the final page goes.
Yeah,
out,
you should go out for a bite tweet or something.
Yeah. And we should do a special show or something, and maybe have a party.
Hookers.
Yeah. Get all the van fans together.
Yeah.
Get the hookers in.
Yeah. The van fans.
Yeah.
It just
the
sounds
Vanguard.
It just sounds like a load of people with vans.
Van fans.
What did I put on that T-shirt? Do you remember I made you a T-shirt when you told me?
Yeah.
What's it called?
I wear that down the gym. It used to be the Vanguard.
That's
Vanguard.
it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's
Speaking of which, still
you're
have
wearing,
T-shirts available.
you're one of our
ACP
T-shirts,
gear.
yeah. Redbubble.
Yeah.
ACP. I've lost the link.
ACP gear.
ACPgear.redbubble.com. Yeah.
There you go.
Don't make one of these with like the green with Nam written on it.
No.
In like a stencil font.
Oh, you should. I'd wear that.
Yeah.
Be good.
Nam.
Yeah. That was a great
Sid
comic.
Nam.
Yeah.
Now,
Sid Nam.
I mean,
Bit of fucking Nam. See this shit with people getting blown up.
Yeah. Forest Hills and Sid Nam.
Yeah. Fuck. Vietnam, no, Sid Nam. It's fucking rough.
I like a plain naan. No, at all.
That fucking joke in what do you call it? Phone shop, when like Ashley's talking to the squaddy. She's like, "Oh, I've seen some rough stuff. It's like someone getting beheaded. It's not so much the sight of it; it's the smell." He's like, oh, you must have seen some horrible things in Afghanistan. He went, Afghanistan? That was Croydon.
Bloody hell. And what a perfect
On
way
that
to
bombshell.
sign off this. I'll tell you what, I could talk comics to these chaps for days, but we haven't got days. We've just got a couple of hours, and we got to do some recommends yet. I've got to do a whole bunch of recommends yet.
Got a load.
But before then, do we have any shout-outs, gents?
Yeah, got a few. So big shout out to Josh, Alan, and Matt, all who met at the Indie Comics Creator Con this week. I think did they call it like East ACP East or something? I think they called it, didn't they? Is that right? It's nice to see. That was really lovely. Why haven't you backed Ragtime Soldier from Pat Mills and Gary Welsh? They need to get on that. Builders the successor. I have too. Builders the successor to Charlie's War. It should have must back this written all over it, which I think people should do. Back to self-serving. Only a few short weeks left. I think we've got 2 weeks as the day of the release of this podcast comes out for the Tribute Press 3 spring catalog Kickstarter. 1 book of life advice, 3 underground comics, some of which won't get reprinted. I can tell you that now. So just going back that if you get a chance. There you go, then, Mark.
I've read Tony Osmond book 2. It's fucking.
Oh, thank you, mate. It's very kind of you.
We'll keep it on the download till like Vince gets his, but like, it's just
Well, I'm gonna get mine, baby.
Yeah, I thought yours is a bit late running because I know I sent one out.
It's just my posting.
Oh, is it? Yeah.
He might have ripped it open and read it himself
and wiped his ass on it.
We were talking about it, but there was genuine shock. So I was reading through it. I was like, no, I can't believe it. And then like something else happens. Like, oh fuck.
Oh, good. Thank you. That's good. That's good.
Yeah.
So
don't
worry,
characters, man.
It's just for anyone involved in the making of it. I've sent the test print out just to make sure they're okay with it before we go to full print. And I can't send one to Vince, who did the logo design, without sending one to Dan. So Dan's had one as well. So that's the reason. Yeah. So don't panic. Everyone's going to get their copy. Yeah.
And also, we're all deeply, madly in love with each other, so we're going to share it. We're going to share each other's spit. Comics.
Yeah. Semen.
Speaking
of jizz, you got any shout-outs, Dan?
Yes. The Dry Cleaner, An Electric Tale of Vengeance, Organised Crime and Ninjas. That's now ready for Notify Me on launch on Kickstarter from our friends at To Be Honest Comic. It's written and drawn by Kieron Squires. Do go check that out. It's going to be awesome.
He's busy, isn't he? Isn't he busy, Kieron?
He's a busy boy. Yeah, I'm currently lettering one of his comics for the Green Archer.
Oh, right. Okay.
Cryptid Hacker Force, which is really fun. It's got to be the most fun I've had lettering a comic in ages. It's great.
Oh, nice one, man. Speaking of lettering, can I just give a shout out to Ken Reynolds, because he did the lettering and design on the new Tony Osmond. Utter professional, Ken.
Yeah.
So we had a process where we got together, me, him, and Cliff, and talked through page by page what we thought the lettering might work, and he's changed the font for this sort of confessional moment as well. And punched. We thought, we came back to him and said that might be a bit small, Ken. So he was trying different sizes. Very good, and good value for money. There you go.
Ken's always been fucking on it.
Very good sense of humour, but very professional. That's what I like about people. Yeah.
We've got Silence, a psychological horror graphic novel from former artist Stanley Kane. Recovering silence, MI finds an amulet brings his angry creations to life. That smashed his target. It's got 41 hours to go from our friend Afterlife Comics, Joseph Oliveira. So do go check that one out.
Yeah.
We've got My Curse Has Disappeared. That's not actually a book. That's not it.
That's just some graphic images just popped up on your screen.
Going off the rails.
It's been hacked.
You've got High Viz Comic Con Saturday 21st June 2025, Kings Heath, Birmingham, UK. All inquiries, go check out info.highvizfestival@gmail.com. We've got Lawless 24th and 25th of May 2025 at Doubletree Bar Hilton Hotel, Bristol, B51 6NJ. And shout out to Secret Identity Comics. Andy, we had on a couple of weeks. I sent over issue copies of Grim Scary Tales and Grim Scary Tales New Nightmares. We've got Viper, a New Enemy, and Viper Crimson Dawn are now being stocked in the shop.
Yeah, so I saw you posted that on Instagram.
Yeah.
So
I think his signing went well, wasn't it?
Yeah, I'm just looking at photos of it now. Looks fucking ace. Do go check it out. secretidentitycomics.com, or go on their Instagram, which is at Secret Identity Comics.
And if you haven't listened yet, episode 504, we're talking more about the shop.
Man, I wish that fucking shop was around the corner for me.
Yeah.
Like, I live in one of the most densely populated areas of the country, and there's not a comic shop that can serve my needs. It's frustrating. Perhaps there is, and I don't know about it, which is quite galling.
I'll serve your needs.
Yeah, comic needs.
Oh, right, okay. Speaking of which, should we talk about some comics?
Yeah.
Let's recommend some books to you lovely people. We've got quite a few this week, so let's rattle through them. Tony.
Yeah, so I got sent two very short comics by Luke Kondor. They're both done with the same artist, and I'm going to murder this. He's a Turkish dude, Selçuk Erwin. Two very different comics. I'm going to talk about them both. He's asked for a little bit of a critique, so there's a couple of things I'm going to talk through. Just sort of general pointers more than anything. The first one is called The Woods. They're very different, really different. The first one, it opens as a man, and he's recounting a dream from the previous night. I'm going to say that people talking about their dreams in real life is sometimes some of the most boring things I've ever heard in my life.
Yeah.
But if in comics, seemingly it's much more interesting. I don't know why. It just
you can visualize. You can actually draw it though, can't you?
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah,
you're making active choices.
And he sees his dog, and I think this is the same dog that's featured on the cover. Really lovely cover. I sent you it, and it's black. It's all black and white cover. But it's a very white, sort of husky style dog. I'm sorry if I'm getting the type of dog it is, the breed wrong, but it's silhouetted and by the night sky, the starless night sky behind it, and sort of looking up. Really, really eye-catching cover. He calls out to the dog, but the dog doesn't seem to recognize him. It's that classic anxiety dream that we have various versions of, don't we? The man remembers the days bringing up his dog, and you sense through this the difficultness of the sharp emotion of the dream that he's lost this dog somehow, and there's a really heartbreaking last line in it, which he does. It's very it's not wordless. It does have words in it, but it's very sparsely written. I'm a big dog guy, I'm there's cat guys and dog guys on there. I'm a bit of a dog guy, and I lost my dog about 6 years ago. Vince tried to steal him once, but so Vince knows about it. But
I loved him very much.
Yeah, he was lovely, wasn't he? And it really kicked me in the guts. I really felt it. If I was going to be slightly critical on it, I would say it reminded me a bit more of a short film than a comic.
Okay.
Somehow. I'm not. It's just a little bit.
Is it like a mood piece?
Very much so.
Okay.
I can see maybe the atmosphere of it. It does work. It works really well, and I found it very emotional. But I think the atmosphere of it might work as a sort of 2 or 3 minute film almost. I don't know why. What you do with that, I don't know. But I will say, very easy to read on your phone as well, which is something to be said, as we just talked about webcomics about. So that's an interesting thing. Very good. Toast is the second one. A sentient toaster searches for customers in a post-apocalyptic wasteland, which is the sort of subtitle to it. And it's the same creative team as The Woods, as I said, but it's completely different looking. Where there's a lot of air and a lot of space and a lot of sky and a lot of woods in The Woods. This is much more sort of tightly packed urban environment, and there's that stark beauty of nature that doesn't happen here. It's narrated seemingly by a crow. I'm not sure if this is right, but there's a sort of crow that lands and looks at this, sees what's going on. And this toaster only has 3 phrases. Unsurprisingly, they're all about toast. And he's sat on this coffee counter in a coffee shop, waiting for customers to come in. But there's going to be no customers because the world has died. So he thinks his battery's beginning to die. There's a bit of Wally in this somewhere.
Okay, yeah,
that makes sense. His battery's beginning to die, and he thinks, I'm going to go out and look to find a customer. And he gets to the end of the shop, and there's a dead person on the ground, and then something happens. I'm not going to say how it ends, but there's a melancholic nature to this one as well, a genuine sadness that comes out of it, and to pass over an emotion through a comic page is no small feat, and I think he's done well there. I think for what he's saying, these are possibly being developed into something bigger, I think.
Okay.
But yeah, go and have a look at Luke Kondor's site. You can find him online. Yeah, interesting. Really nice of him to send them through to me. Send them through to the NIA site, actually. Came through that way. But yeah, really interesting. So you got The Woods, which is the one about the dog, and then you got Toast, which is unsurprisingly about a
I
toaster.
think I've read The Woods. I'm
Have
sure
you?
you sent it to me a fair bit of time ago, but
Oh,
I
okay.
found it very good. I think so.
Okay.
I'm not too sure.
Yeah. Oh, nice one. Right, guys, who's next?
Okay, I'm going to jump in just before Dan's going to be the meat in our sandwich.
Yeah.
Tony. Just a quick one. First, I caught up on Global Comics, the latest issue of Wulf and Batsy, which Tony Esmond got me onto, and I'm a massive fan of now. This is by Brian Baugh. I think it's Baugh or Baugh. You can go to brianbaugh.net or cryptlogic.bigcartel.com to see the book itself.
And I think he's on Global Comics, isn't he?
Yeah, that's where I caught up with this.
Oh, okay.
This Wulf and Batsy chronicles the adventures of a ferocious werewolf and a cute female vampire as they wander the earth in search of a place to call home. But everywhere they go, they end up eating people and getting run out of town. This, I just absolutely love it. I just love the nature of it. It's they are bad guys and they kill people. But there's such joy and energy to Bryan's work. Truly taps into that black and white B-movie horror feel.
Yeah, there's a bit
vibe.
of the Ed Wood about it, isn't there?
Yeah, but and also the EC comics, it's just done right. And of course, you got like the cheesecake sort of art. He can draw a sexy lady, and he draws monsters ripping people's faces off, and innards going everywhere. Also, it's black and white artwork, which I love, and I hope it continues to be. The covers are really, really striking. If you go to the shop and you see any of the covers, they look really cool. It's clearly, we're there for the two leads of the book, so every single cover is a striking version of those two. But interior, I hope the interiors continue to be strong black and white sort of artwork. But he's done God knows how many issues he got now. I think he's got 12.
Yeah, I think it might be 12 is the one I backed on Kickstarter,
yeah,
I think.
Yeah. So that's his latest one. And of course, he is kickstarting. He was with another publisher, but now he is
self-publishing now, isn't he?
Yeah, Bloody Weirdo Comics, I think, self-publishing. And it's small and independent publishing in the best kind of way, and the kind of stuff we love. And as well as there's old school adverts that he's clearly written everything for as well. It's so well done. So massive fan of this, and it's one of those books that when there's a new issue, I'm desperate to read another one. So Wulf and Batsy, talked about it on a previous episode, so I wanted to give that a shout. That my first one I'm going to talk about though is Tony talked about a book by Warren Walker and Erwin Papper. The Angriest Warrior. Not too long ago, there was another book within that gold mine of comics he sent. Issue 1 of Vile, which is a 64-page black and white story written by Warwick Walker, illustrated by Erwin Papper, and this is about a drug addict unknowingly injecting himself with a power-enhancing experiment that enables him to find self-redemption. I'm not going to say any more about that than the actual book itself. I started reading it. Anyone who's listened to the show regularly, I started reading it, and I wanted to come back and properly talk about it. And how. And fucking how. I mean, firstly, just the cover itself. It's all black and white. Papper's artwork is next fucking
He's really good, man.
level.
I really like his stuff. He's well worth following on Instagram. Talk about another dude.
Absolutely next level. Just the masthead for the book itself caught my attention because it looks like something out of a black metal band's album, and it's really, it looks like a sort of a moth, and but the middle of the moth's body is like a spine, and it is a body horror book, like a cyberpunk body horror sort of book. Issue 1 leads me to believe that there will be more of this.
Lovely. I have to say that moment where he steps out into the real world in it, I think it's about page 9 or something like that. I'm like, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good.
It starts off, and this is from Collision Comics. Starts off with a guy sort of using a scratch card as a sort of I'm going to call it a voiceover. It's talking about how they're clearly at like one of those sort of Alcoholics Anonymous kind of like for drug addicts, as the main character is doing a scratch card and going shit because he hasn't won, and he's just the whole room turns to look at him. So the first couple of pages, immediately Vile leads into things we see later, but it's got two kind of meanings in some sort of way, and the word vile comes up in different spellings as well, because it's kind of also what this character is. He is a piece of shit human being who doesn't seem to care about anyone else, and even though he's like a Drug Addicts Anonymous, he steps out, and then there's these certain details. It almost looks like the way that they've got their jackets. It's got that Akira looking, that Japanese cyberpunk, clearly influenced by that. But it's when he steps out, as Tony says, steps out into the real world, and you see full pages, like splash pages.
Mate, that view, that worm's eye view, looking up and then up the building.
Yeah.
That's like that. What's that Bruce Willis movie with the flying cars?
A Fifth Element.
There's a bit of Fifth Element there, isn't there?
Yeah.
There's also a bit of Jeff Darrow, I keep thinking.
Absolutely. I was going to mention that, because it starts with, there are a couple of splash pages or double page spreads of this character just in this world walking, and there's no dialogue. There's just double page spreads of the world. So you see this person, but by having this world just there, and any of these could be a print, everything is filled with graffiti, which means the artist is having fun, doing, noodle bar signs and, probably putting in jokes everywhere. It's the sort of things you'll go back and you'll just look at, what have they written here? What have they written here? The classic cyberpunk sort of, these skyscrapers and these old sort of worn down futuristic buildings, but everyone has got that futuristic cyberpunky 2000 AD sort of aesthetic to the way they're dressed as well. It looks
there's a bit in it where there's obviously some massive manga influences in it, but there's a bit where his hands get all mangled further on, and it really reminded me of the bit in Hard Boiled where the dude just gets mashed.
Yeah.
And he's his fingers have all gone. And
Mate, what bit? That's the entire fucking book.
It is. Yeah.
There is one of the spreads which I think, one of the things that caught me when you have these sort of Jeff Darrow-esque sort of spreads of showing this world, and you can get, obviously you do it, it's fun for an artist if you like doing that sort of stuff, but and it's world building. It can be world building, but sometimes it falls on the artist is just doing them for themselves. So where is the story building or the lore, the world building of that? There was one on one of the spreads, which is the second one. He's riding clearly on a tube or something like that, or it feels like that kind of train, or maybe he's just on a bench, and the main figure's sort of sat there. He's on the left hand of the page, and as we look across, you see people in this weird sort of bondage sort of cyberpunk gear. There's someone that's got a cybernetic arm. They look like some sort of thug, and then just to the next of them, there's a mother with her child just sat there, holding the baby, and the baby's got a slight cybernetic implant as well, and the kid has. It's not set up in a way of she's in danger. It perfectly sort of represented, this is the world, we don't need to, she's perfect. It was natural. That really caught me. And just above her head, there is a bit of a sort of a graffiti that says "Erwin eats turds," big ones. So there's lots of jokes like that. But as this comic goes on, you introduce you find out a bit more about this guy. He's just looking for drugs. He finds some drugs. He sort of injects them. Well, I say injects them. He's got a vial of them. They come in these little sort of tubes which he clicks into his arm, and it sort of compresses into his bloodstream, and he goes on a strange trip, which then does a wonderful sense of playing with the panel structure, and it gets properly trippy. And this is shortly after he's just had the shit kicked out of him by a gang, but he takes this trip, and later on, he starts to question his reality and whether he should be a good person. There's this amazing panel when he trips out so much, everything goes white. And it says it's a moment of peace. and then as he's walking, he's creating these ripples of like ink. Do you know what I mean? The panel that I was just staring at it for a while. It's just this panel of him, 2 boots walking, but the way he was creating ripples just really caught my eye. And then he sort of comes to consciousness and does something oddly heroic after, you know, I don't want to spoil too much of this dream because you have to see it for yourself. There's some wonderful visuals of breaking panels and
eyeballs.
Weird shit. As trips should be in comics, I think. They shouldn't be something that you can understand on the page. You've got to be like, what the fuck is going on with it? And he comes back into the world, as it were, and does something oddly good, which you don't expect of this character. And then shortly after that, he makes another choice. And I won't say what that choice is, but maybe he shouldn't have. And it's a crazy book, this. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I need to get a physical copy of this, I think.
Yeah. Like I say, I didn't even really talk about the body horror here. But
it's like something that would come out of Living the Line to me.
Yeah.
It's a similar sort of book to what they do, yeah.
Yeah. I'm very intrigued by the fact that this is
first issue.
The first issue. And the book ends with a quote from Dostoevsky, as you do. There is only one thing that I dread, not to be worthy of my sufferings.
Yeah, he knew how to suffer, didn't he, as well?
Yeah. So I was just very impressed by this. I haven't gone back to. I will now go back to read The Angriest Warrior properly.
Very different.
Yeah,
very different.
Very different. Yeah. But that's the beauty of comics, though, isn't it? But I think a lot of our listeners, this will be right up their street. Obviously got successfully funded on Kickstarter. If you go to erwinpapa.storeenvy.com, they have copies of Vial number 1. And the one that they've got there is an 84-page version that's got like pin-up sections by loads of indie artists and stuff. So there's loads of great stuff. But Vial, I'm very interested to see what comes next.
Yeah, really good.
And these creators weren't on my radar 2 months ago, and now I'm like, if they're on it, I want to read it. So, Dan, what have you got for us?
This was the book sent through to us.
Yes.
Axel's Infernal. The creative team, we've got writer DG Chichester, artist Carl Waller, colorist Wesley Wong, letterer Pat Brossow, creative consultant Gregory Wright. There's a couple of people. Variant cover artist Dean Kotz. I don't have the variant cover, but the main cover in this book is fucking excellent as is. So the blurb goes: you're invited on the road trip of a lifetime for Percy Cross. Just into her 20s, Percy thought she was fine living the fringe of society, of legality and morality, but now she's about to be shanghaied into the edge of reality by the UTA, the supernatural trucking system that express delivers elements of evil from a multi-dimensional, multicultural multiplicity of hells. So with that kind of pitch, you're looking at a solid Virgo book, which this doesn't fit into the type of straight away, I'd say, on the first issue. You tells the story of the Percy girl who's kind of a bit of a wayward soul, but she's kind of got a bit of a heart of gold in her. In trying to stop a young kid getting run over, she inadvertently places herself in the path of this huge juggernaut, the 16-wheeler, which we know from that blurb is transporting hells and evil across dimensions, and she becomes like the passenger in this vehicle as this guy drives it to the various destinations. The artwork is absolutely stunning. It's great. It reminds me very much of Lionel Yu's stuff.
Okay.
Very kind of all the characters have like they're very kind of angular and lots of detail. The old people have tons of creases. You've got some absolutely amazing angle choices of where the camera, as it were, is put. It's not just kind of like mid shots, face shots.
There's a little Jason Pearson influence to it as well, especially the tread of the boots.
Yeah,
because the main character's got chunky fucking boots, and I love that shirt.
Whenever someone's got like you see someone jumping and you see the sole of their boot and the artist has really spent time, it's like that's a fucking solid boot. It's nice and chunky. It's like that's
Yeah.
one of the little things I look for. So that's ace. That's really good. Uh, color choices as well, brilliant because there's a very reserved color palette for the characters in the world when they're in reality, and when this huge spectral uh, juggernaut turns up, swirling with sort of all these kind of evils around it. All the colors are kind of like ratcheted up, become a lot more vivid and intense, and more heavily saturated, and it very much sells that kind of outworldly evilness of the stuff they're kind of transporting. So the colorist has gone for like reds, yellows, oranges with some pinks and purples working in there.
The driver having like sunglasses, like the aviators that there's that orange sort of glow to it. Looks really cool.
So it's all like he's very much coated in like spot blacks, very heavy shadowed. He's got a killer handlebar moustache and the mirror shades, which you there's instantly like for character design, there's a wall there between you and the character and the Percy character, the girl who can't see what his intentions are. He seems to be just been driving this vehicle. There's interesting moments where she's looking out the side of the car and looking in the mirror to the side, and she starts seeing flashes of her past. And she's obviously had a very traumatic history, which you get glimpses of. And he sort of scolds her for like, don't look out the window, don't look in the mirror. You're not ready for it yet. And she has a kind of a bit of a fainting fit, which wakes up, and it sort of ends with him saying like, if we're lucky, we'll both get out of this alive. Issue 2 is on Kickstarter now. I really recommend you go check it out. It's a really fun read. There's a very interesting premises. A 5-issue series. Go check out their website as well. It's really well designed.
Exceptional art on this.
Yeah,
absolutely exceptional.
The art is it's this it's absolutely like great.
It's a real strong start. It's a strong start to a series,
God,
isn't it? Yeah.
Go check it out, man. It's on Kickstarter now. Issue 2. I presume you'll be able to buy issue 1 in with a bundle. Lots of fun. Thank you for sending that in.
He's got some great pull quotes in it. Dan Berriton, Howard Mackey, Terry Kavanagh. There's some great names in it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man,
yeah.
Lovely stuff on the back. Yeah. Go for it. Check it out.
Yeah. Then so before Tony signs us off, as always, I'm going to jump back in with a book that the name always caught my eye, but I was thinking, well, what's that about? And then when I discovered one of the creators on it, I thought, is it because I'm not on social media? I'm not reading like the internet or comics internet or things like that I haven't heard anything about this. There's 3 issues, so let's check it out. And this is a book called The Moon is Following Us, and for some people, that's a strange name for a book. It's quite clearly a wonderful book, and it is by Daniel Warren Johnson, who is the creator, writer, and artist. Riley Rossmo, who is the creator and artist. Mike Spicer, who works with I know Daniel on a lot of stuff, doesn't he? Interior Colours. Sean Lee does the letters. This is another one of those only in comics, man. Only in comics can you have something that is so massively widescreen, technicolor, bright, colourful, energetic, fun, vibrant, action-packed, heartbreaking, tragic, solemn, somber, character-based, drama. It's DWJ all over. We say whether it be from Do a Power Bomb to fucking Space Mullet to whatever he's done, Murder Falcon, there are these massive ideas that you get your ticket for the cinema, and then all of a sudden you thought you were going to be watching this to see like this massive action set piece. Why are you crying? Do you know what I mean? Why has it just got you fucking right there? The Moon is Following Us is another one of those, but it is not all Daniel Warren Johnson. As he says, he also puts a note in the first issue. This is his Riley Rossmo, who's an artist that's been on my radar. I think since Green Wake, way back. That was Green Wake when I heard good words about that. And he's done some strange stuff of his own. Did he do Martian Manhunter? He's done. I think
you're right. Might be right, mate. Yeah.
He's done some unique stuff of his own over the years, and shame on me, I've missed a lot of it, but I'm a fan of his work. This is a brilliant combination of creators. Because it starts off with.
Pardon me, sorry, of course he did Martian Manhunter. Yeah, I really like that series. Yeah. With Orlando.
Yeah, it starts off with these two brightly coloured sort of warriors. There's a frog with an eye patch, and there's this couple who are clearly married. There's like a Valkyrie-like warrior, and there's a smaller sort of male character who seems more sci-fi, and they're just getting caught up. They're being chased by these monsters, and I was like, this is, I didn't know what to expect of this book, and there's a reason I'm not really saying the synopsis of it, even though I'm going to give some of the game away. And they're fighting these creatures all made of black, and they're trying to get out. They keep talking about they're trying to reach someone, they're trying to get there, but one of them gets hurt, so they have to get out at that particular time and come back and try and save her later. And it's clearly the woman is distraught by this. It's like, no, we have to get out. She gets injured on the way out. And when they leave, and this is brightly coloured action. I mean, it's serious action. Like, creatures are being beheaded. And they're trying desperately to get out. And as soon as they get out, you realise, and all of this artwork is done by Riley Rossmo. Wonderful stuff.
Yeah.
As soon as they get out, Daniel Warren Johnson takes over on the artwork, and you realise it's a married couple who have had sort of almost VR headsets on, and they've just woken up from a dream. Because their daughter has been living in a dream world. She's essentially in a coma that she just won't wake up, and they don't know what to do. And they're having to go into this dream world of their daughter to try and find her and bring her out of it. That's a very simplistic way of saying it. And there's more to the story that I highly recommend you going in and finding out more, because from there, like, the first issue is a lot of like the big action, just fucking big budget everywhere, and it kind of ends with the Daniel Warren Johnson sort of, I say taking over. There's no taking over on this book. They clearly, it's rare. I haven't seen two creators work in sync like this in quite some time. And the start of the second issue is very much about like a man and wife who are clearly something happens to their daughter, and the strain on the marriage, the strain on them. There's stuff that's happened in the back. We're trying to find out what's happened. You see the love of the family, the tragedy, the strain that they're going through, and then the weird sci-fi supernatural magic thing that leads to them going on the next leg of their journey and becoming these warriors. And everyone that they meet in this dream world are like the toys that their daughter grew up with, but now they're like warriors. There's like a teddy bear who's now like fucking 7 foot tall, and he's built like, he's got like dungarees on, but he's like a barbarian sort of character. And it's so good. And if you miss out on this, you're missing out on another one. And I think, I'm going to give the whole creative team on this, because Mike Spicer's, just the way the colours work on this is absolutely beautiful. The storytelling will pluck at your heartstrings, and I know it's probably going to tear your heart out. The way that there's 3 issues that I've read so far. It's coming out monthly at the moment. I'm going to be jumping on. I've caught up, and I'm going to be jumping on to the latest issues. And of course there'll be a collected edition. This is from Image. Is this Image? Yes, this is an Image book. If by the end of it, this isn't another Do a Powerbomb. You know how Do a Powerbomb sort of like, there was this wave. Same with Murder Falcon. There's like a Warren Johnson wave that goes over, isn't it? This deserves the same. and I think it's.
Yeah, I haven't heard as much about this by any stretch. Yeah.
No, but it should be because this is just fucking brilliant. And there's a twist at the end of issue 3 involving the villains of the whole piece that made me think, what?
Okay.
What? And is gonna. I can't wait for the next issue to see. Does that turn the world upside down? What does it mean?
Are you ordering a trade for this then, did you say? Sorry.
I will do, but I've caught up with the 3 issues. I'm going to buy the issues going forward, I think.
Right,
okay. Just because I want the fix. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
The story is such that I want to know what it is.
Yeah.
But then I'll probably double dip on a... Perfect example. I'll double dip on a collection of this. I don't know how many issues they're going to be. I think... it's 10. 10 they're doing of this. And the last one... Well, the ones that they've got on the Image website, last one comes out probably June this year. So I've got a few issues to catch up on it because it's been going since September last year. But yeah, I'll don't be surprised if I talk about this again. Sucking great stuff.
Nice.
Riley Rossmo just came back onto my radar massively.
And 9's up for pre-order on the Forbidden Planet website for the 7th of May.
Yeah. I know Daniel said on his letter, he said, I had an inkling of an idea. He had a concept for something and had nothing else to go with it. And then Riley came in, and from there, it just exploded. So, yeah,
right.
the moon is following us, which is something that their daughter says, which is the tie-in. Put it on your radars, put it in your wish list, put it on your pull lists.
I really must go back and finish Proof as well, which is one of his.
Oh yeah, Proof.
Remember that?
Yeah, that was the Sasquatch sort of detective sort of thing.
Yeah, I must go back on that
like
one.
the X-Files, but the investigator's a Sasquatch, isn't he?
I think so. Yeah, or amongst others. Yeah,
that was great. I've got a couple of trades of that. Yeah. Okay, Tony, finish it off.
Yeah. So my last one is called In the Garden of Earthly Delights, a Tea Leaves Caper by Rich Tommaso, published by Floating World Comics. 88 pages, and it's done really. I haven't got it with me. I'll show you. I forgot to bring it upstairs, but it's digest format. So I had to go and wait for somebody in the waiting room of a hospital this week, and having been able to put comics in your pocket ain't as easy these days because I like to keep them fresh. So it was a nice one to put in the pocket of my jacket. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's that sort of size. The cover is a colour cover, but the insides are colour, but on newsprint, which is quite nice. It tells a story. The cover image, it does tell part of the story, but it's one of those things that sort of speaks to the story, but you won't know what the cover means until you get in and read the story. I've had this sitting on the read pile for a while, not got around to it. It's only the convenience of sitting in a waiting room that made me take it with it. You're going to pay about 11 quid for a $12 comic if you buy it in the UK, which is it's slightly more than I think you perhaps should do. Okay. If you know about Tommaso before, you're going to know the ballpark for the art around this. It's a little less rendered than maybe Spy Seal or Black Phoenix, which were Spy Seal certainly had that sort of beady feel to it for me. And if you read Clover Honey, which I did talk about a number of years ago now, it's less underground than that one, to be fair. So what is it about? It's a heist comic. But if you imagine a heist comic that's somewhere in this field of things, a little bit Nancy Drew. Do you remember Nancy Drew?
Yeah,
it's sort of that sort of thing. A little bit Archie comics with that Tommaso twist. There's a little bit more of an adult theme to it. So Trina comes from good criminal stock. Her dad owns a bar, and her mate Dinah. They plan heists together. In fact, Trina and Dinah just got ripped off by so they've done a jewelry robbery. They've used this sort of wet friend of theirs to sell the jewels, and he's basically sold them to this, or he thinks he's selling them to this villain, and this villain has ripped him off and not paid him for them, and he doesn't know what to do because he's just avoiding Trina because he's a bit scared of her as well. And so they think, what we're going to do. So as luck would have it, Trina works in an art gallery full of old masters, so sort of big scale expensive paintings. So she thinks, what I'm going to do is I'm going to steal them and I'm going to use them to rip off this dude. His name's Etienne Manchetti. Wasn't there a Manchetti in Goodfellas? Wasn't there one of them called Manchetti? Something like that.
I don't know. Anyway. Yeah.
So he's this sort of scary gun-toting villain. So they decide they're going to rip him off. They've got this massive scheme to repaint some old masters, sell. I don't. It all gets. It does. To be fair, gets a little bit confusing.
Okay.
As is common with that sort of type of story, the heist type of story, things get complicated and they get overcomplicated, and too many people become involved. Her dad decides to take part in it. He's fucking it up. He's doing something. He's been a bit obvious about it, and it has a something of a redemptive arc. But yeah, it works out in the end. And it all sort of, but it's just a fun read. To be fair, it's not anything too taxing. It's nothing that's gonna, like, you're gonna think, what the fuck is here? It's a quick, you can read it in one go. It all rolls out very nicely. Everyone in it is, for a comic that looks like an Archie comic, everyone in it is a little bit more multifaceted, I'm gonna say,
Okay.
than you would get like with, Jughead and
He's
stuff
trying
like
to do
that.
that thing of like a kind of the Archie style, but like with a bit harder edge story.
A little bit, yeah, a little bit. There's a little bit of the Darwin Cook somewhere.
Okay.
There's a little bit of the Parker there somewhere. I watched. I keep telling you, didn't I? I watched The Outfit this week.
Yeah,
the sort of heist thing, and I watched Payback, which is another Parker movie today. And yeah, there's a little bit of the noir about it as well, the modern noir perhaps. And in fact, in all honesty, I think the criminal father who owns the bar is probably, I'm slightly more interested in him than the two girls running around doing bank robberies. I don't know why. He just seems to be a bit more of a sort of wilder
appeals
card.
to you a bit more.
Yeah, probably because I'm that age bracket.
Yeah.
And the fact that I like those sort of characters in books and stuff.
Yeah.
But you can get this one in comic shops. I know they had it in Gosh. You can also go to floatingworldcomics.com, which if you're in the US. As I understand it, this is the sort of start of a few different. They're going to roll out some type. Tommaso's going to roll out this sort of thing.
Set in this universe, as it were.
I think so, or certainly in this sort of format, maybe.
Yeah. Okay.
You can find Rich on Instagram at Rich RICH Tommaso TOMMASO, or you can go to www.richtommaso.gumroad.com and buy some of his stuff. I know Rich had quite a busy Patreon, I think.
Okay.
He did Heroes at the end of our table at Heroes a few years ago, actually. Nice guy, very much sort of in the scene. Floating World Comics are pretty cool people. They put out, they distribute American Nature, which I'm in. So they're good. They're good folks as far as I'm concerned. But yeah, In the Garden of Earthly Delights, a Tea Leaves Caper by Rich Tommaso. There you go. That's my
nice one.
That's my last one. So it's a bit expensive. I'm going to say it's a bit too much. Okay. I was looking over the shelves at Gosh today and picking up A5 colour covered black and white interiors and going, oh, 12 quid then.
Oof.
And you're thinking, come on, guys.
I always find it hard to kind of think, because like the print, when you're doing the smaller print runs, it's more expensive. Like yeah, you get 50 done, and like you got to sell it for like a fair whack just to cover the bloody cost of it. But sometimes,
with due respect, this did look a little bit like they'd done it on a photocopier.
Okay. Sometimes you got to think,
printer
like,
or something.
Is someone going to buy an A5 photocopy comic for 12 quid? Is that a good value proposition?
Yeah,
I would maybe say no.
Yeah. Then again, I'm old and tight, and that's my last one. There you go. Thank you, guys.
Just do more exercises, Tony.
No, it's not. It's tight down there, mate. I tell you now. Can't get a betting shop pen in the arse. In the bath.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I love that betting shop pen thing. Like the younger crowd were like, "What the fuck's that?"
Yeah. It was a betting shop.
They probably don't do pens anymore in there.
Yeah, they probably don't. Yeah. I said I'd put a bet on. I haven't put a bet on for ages.
Could do that.
Let's put a bet on this week, folks. See how we do.
Really?
Do an each way. Let's all do an each way this week.
Oh, lovely. But on what race?
Let's choose one.
Okay. Pick one.
Random.
Yes.
If anyone's got a tip. I sent you a tip through, didn't I, for Cheltenham this week? You opened do you remember you opened the photograph?
Had 2 tips on that fucking photo.
2 tips? Disgraceful. But that's not the sort of content that you'll get on this show next week. But this week...
Send it on to my mum.
It
wasn't me on that picture.
Because she likes pictures of big knobs. Not because of the joke.
Oh dear. Oh dear. But obviously we spoke about a lot of comics, a lot of comics topics this week. We hope you've enjoyed it. And if there's anything you want us to discuss going forward, please do get in touch. Several different ways you can get in touch with us. You can email us awesomecomicspod@gmail.com. Like we said earlier, if you just want advice, tips, whatever, you can send your comic in there. Also, if you want those sort of things, join our Slack community. I know we talked about it earlier.
If you want to discuss in earnest like the things we talk about in the show, that there's on Monday, Tuesday, that's in the podcast discussion. People talk about it.
Discussion, yeah.
You think these wankers haven't got it right, and I'm going to fucking tell them. The Slack is the place to do that.
Easy, Dan. Don't open those gates. Sometimes you can't shut Pandora's box. Tony, I see that cheeky smile. Don't say anything. But please, it's
Never
a great.
Met Pandora.
It's a great community of people. Loads of great channels about Kickstarters, artwork, comics, and it's all good natured and all positive. So that's what we want on there. We just want comics talk. We just want comics talk.
Yeah.
And a bit of movie talk. There's a bit of movie talk.
Yeah, and books.
There's all right.
There's
okay.
a book.
I mean, I know I am saying we just want fucking comics talk, and then my co-host, if I can
drive it off the road. Yes, the executioner.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, but generally comics talk, maybe with a little bit of side stuff, but comics, keep it on track.
Okay. Yeah. And you can follow us on social media at Awesome Comics Pod on Instagram, at the Awesome Pod on X. We're on nothing else yet. Who knows where we'll be.
Oh, we're on Substack.
Oh, we're on Substack as well. Yeah, follow us on there, and because there's these episodes as well as cover topics.
Other content.
Yeah, other content. A saucy kind. No, there isn't that yet. But there's always saucy comic talk, and there will be next week as well. So join us back here, same bat channel, same bat place at awesomecomics.podbean.com. If you listen to us on Apple Podcasts, leave a nice review, subscribe, etc. Also on Spotify, you can do the same. Amazon, Stitcher, Podnose, Podknife. What other networks are we on, Tony?
We're on the network for that gives you tips on how to meet and chat up women, and it's called "Are You a School?" Because I'm trying to shoot some kids inside you.
That is fucked up.
That is fucking heavy. That's one of
the most fucked up things you've said on this show, and that's going some. That's fucking going.
That shocked me, man.
Not much shocks us. We've been through a lot of Urban Dictionary corner that is, and we're resolute. But that is fucking
nice one, T.
Fucking hell. That's
I didn't even hesitate about saying that.
No.
Lovely stuff.
And please don't.
I could have told you the joke I told you before we came on air.
Yeah, it's pretty bad as well.
Please don't hesitate to follow us online, etc. Tony, where can they find you?
Neverendanything.com or Tony Ez on Substack.
Nice. Dan.
You can read Vanguard at vanguardcomic.com and on Global Comics too.
Nice. You can catch me on social media at Jester Diablo. Thank you very much for listening to us. It's our opinions. That's our advice.
Yeah.
It's there's no hard and fast rule.
Yeah.
Apart from possibly the rule that Tony won't be allowed back.
I'd like to say it helps with chatting up women, but I don't do that ever. So it makes a difference.
We're too busy reading comics. So have a brilliant week, everyone. If you're making a comic, we hope it goes really well and you're really happy with the comics you're making. If you're reading comics, we hope you're really enjoying the comics you're reading and you get inspired and you just jones about this medium. And wherever you are in the world, from Dan, Tony and myself, have a brilliant week. And what else should they do?
Stay awesome.
Stay awesome.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.